folks. Welcome back to Talks Battletech, or Let's Talks Battletech. Saying hi again. We're gonna have a good time. Hopefully. Let me get some audio background back in here, because you can probably hear it a little bit, maybe playing in the background from my speakers. But we're gonna go ahead and jump right into this and but otherwise, for the most part, what we're doing here today is for Talks Battletech, since we don't have Justin here to join us to jump into maybe like a scenario or two of different things in Battletech. Talk about, yeah, I'm gonna put that on the backward. Thought we would go ahead and look at some other stuff here. One of the cool first things I wanted to talk about, and some of you might have recognized that from that little opening there, is Text Talks Battletech. Night, 7 p.m. At least for me. Wherever you maybe are in the world. Learn a lot more about Battletech and enjoy a great time learning more about the Riflemen and the original Flak Gang, as they call it. Looks like it's going to be an awesome project. They're also doing the Wounded Warriors for Christmas, so please go ahead and donate. That would be much appreciated to support that cause. And so later tonight, around a little bit before 7, I will do a watch party for the Talks Battletech. For Tex. Go ahead and support him because he's great. And they've got an art pack out right now for the Rifleman stuff, and it looks absolutely fantastic. That was the thing you were seeing on the first screen there. But in the meantime, our thing we're going to be doing today is going over some Battletech stuff for an upcoming game project. Well, when I say game project, I want to run a Time of War Battletech thing, and I kind of wanted to share my thought process and ideas with you guys out there. You may notice also that the Sarno looks a little weird to you right now. That's because I have a blackout feature for my Chrome, which is amazing. So Dark Reader right here, super awesome. Lets you switch between light modes and dark modes. Excuse me. We got. Lets you switch between the two and generally get the contrast in design and style that you want for when you're looking at for whatever you want. So in my case, I don't like to look at very bright screens, and probably many of you don't either. I have fairly sensitive eyes, so yeah, I don't like to stare at really bright screens. So I turn on Dark Readers, so that way I can read through it. And Sarna tends to be a very bright website, and it's got a lot of contrast, and I think it's super interesting, and it would be cool if they wanted to throw in a dark mode of their own. Just saying, Sarna, if anybody from their team, please, dark mode. I stare at this screen too often in the middle of the night. I'm gonna move the camera over a little bit here, so that way you guys can see me better. My face isn't like slammed into the corner of the screen here. But yeah. So yeah, there was a server migration recently. Cool, awesome stuff. So going into what we're going to be doing for this particular Battletech, the Talks Battletech, we're doing a Time of War series at the moment on Twitch for Sunday nights or Sunday mornings from 11 to around 3. In between there, we usually try to end at 2-ish o'clock. And then try and do about an hour of closing notes with whoever's left, which is usually going to be myself and Justin, and maybe one or two of the other players hanging around to talk about what happened, what's going on, future endeavors. So in this case, I want to run my own campaign of this, and so in order to do that, I need to figure out what I'm gonna do. So I've been looking at the timeline for Battletech, and where I kind of want to be at in terms of an interesting era to work in. Probably the most interesting one, besides the clan invasion, for a lot of people, that's the big go-to right now, which is the clan invasion, and that's the one we're doing at the moment, is during the time period of the clan invasion. We're set about a year before it actually takes place, and then we'll be on the outlying planets where some of the first invasion forces make it to. So yeah, kind of going through the timeline here, looking at the different kind of errors and events that are going on. One of the first things that struck me as interesting, and maybe the more interesting one to look at, is around this time period, where Simon Cameron begins his tour of the Star League and then dies in a tragic accident during the Civil War period for the Star League, where the Ameris coup starts, and kind of going into that idea. And so kind of the idea is to hit around this era right here. So from basically 2750 to about 27, and so I'll write down about for it. And obviously I'm writing this down on pen and paper, so I will show you guys later talking about. But yeah, it's probably not going to focus that very well, but yeah. But 2785 might be a little hard to see, so okay, can I get my tools out here? Up. Yeah, so we're talking 2750, which is where Simon Cameron begins his tour of the Star League. That's kind of where I want my players to start out. The players are going to start out as probably somewhere within the Star League's officially sanctioned zones, as towards the outer periphery area. And what we're talking about here is during this time that Simon Cameron is touring the Star League, parts of the Unification War are still going on. Basically, the Unification War never really ended, as far as I understand. And so the periphery is completely under the control of everything that they're doing. And the Star League is attempting to subvert that control, because now that the Star League's established, peace just doesn't happen. You know, you gotta have an enemy to keep everybody occupied. And so they turn their eyes towards the periphery and getting all known humans under their control. All aspects of Terran civilization and all aspects of human civilization under the control of the Star League. And that's essentially what the Unification War is about. So the House Camerons are attempting basically to just keep themselves at a distance, per se, in this situation. And Simon Cameron specifically hasn't made any particular moves to do anything specific, as far as I understand. But we're going to explore that really quick here. So let's go to Simon Cameron's page here and take a look at what Simon Cameron is all about. Simon Cameron was born on May 2709 and dies in 2751 in February. He was born May 11th and dies February 17th, 2751. So, in So 2751 on May the, what is it? No, I'm sorry. February 17th. The other thing to keep in mind is that a majority of my players who will end up playing this probably don't know a lot of the history of Battletech and don't know a lot of the history of the general consensus of what this world is. So there's a lot of stuff they could look up, obviously, and find out about with the story. But following these important key events is a great way to alleviate a lot of the stress as a GM or DM, as it is, in storylines that are already kind of pre-created for you. Being able to build inside of a world by using major dates and exploits as a way to kind of control the narrative of time. And that's one of the biggest things that's hard to get a reference around for most games. And probably one of my biggest criticisms at the moment for probably Matt Mercer is in his original campaign of Campaign 1, there was a distinct level of time that was presented within Campaign 1 that gave it such a distinct feeling to it. In the moments of Campaign 2, we are aware of time frames based on outside sources, somewhat. I think it'd be really cool if he went back to a little more of the roots of exploring and specifically giving dates and making the players remember that they are somewhat time constrained and that things will move on even if you don't. And it's one of the nice things about playing around in a world that already has an established timeline, is that those important dates won't change necessarily. And making sure your players are far enough away from those events that they can't affect them is part of it too. There'll just be things that affect the universe or the world. In this case, the universe or galaxy specifically will be things that are affected here. So this needs some updates apparently. For material from Handbook, Major Periphery States, Intelligence Operations, and Historical Liberation, Terror Volume 1, Error Report, Title Clues, Movement Period. Consider revisiting the article, updating the new material, removing the tag, so all information has been added. So, they need to do some updates on this article and specifically get into some of these other people here and just clean up that stuff. And believe me, I'm no lore master for Battletech, that is for sure. Tex does a damn great job and does a lot of research for this, and I would really, really love if more lore masters of Battletech existed out there, and I'd love to get to know more about the spheres, the history, and to get a hold of more books and actually like sit down and be able to read them and to really get a better grasp on what's going on. Part of the reason being is that I do want to try and write something for Battletech. Not necessarily anything that'll be published, but maybe like some goofy, kind of just fan-made, non-canon extension to what could be the post-aftermath of the Dark Age. Because I like the idea of moving past the Dark Age that nobody likes. And the reason why I say that, because I'm sure there are people out there who like the Dark Age setting, and the Jihad era. I dislike both of them so far, just from cursory reading. But that's my own opinion, and I think that has more to do with the fact that I don't like kind of a repeat scale of what the Succession Wars are, but with stuff that doesn't make sense. It'd be more understanding if Word of Blake was trying to wage some sort of informational guerrilla war, and that's why they destroyed the HPGs, and that's why they kind of doomed humanity to regression. But otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. But that has to do more with, I probably need to do more reading into the Dark Age and the Jihad era to get a better understanding of it. But for the most part, basically, when somebody cursorily explained it to me, it just didn't make sense. But that's my opinion. So yeah, we're looking at Simon Cameron here to kind of understand the beginning of the end of Star League and what we're looking at with that. And keep in mind, a great look into the history here of this, in this particular era, is understanding what the American Civil War was. Heck, go ahead and check out Tex Talks Battletech with the American Civil War. It's a 2-part series. It's really long, but it's really, really worth the watch. So at some point, we might go visit that and try and pull up some information and knowledge from it as it goes along. Yes, I keep pushing Tex because I love his stuff. He does a lot of research, and I think he did it really well. And I like things that I don't have to read with my eyeballs because I'm dyslexic, and so it's very hard for me to translate things sometimes. Especially when I'm trying to write stuff down and understand it. But that, again, I'm getting off point and off track with what we're trying to do here. So Simon Cameron was touring the various leagues, 5-part tour. He stopped at Star's End system in 2751. The First Lord made an unscheduled to New Callista asteroid. So let's write that down. New Callista asteroid. And the reason why we're writing some of this down is because it's important to understand the history of where something starts in order to craft a plot line around it. So we're unsolicited with the local miners, or he was solicited with the local miners and toured the facility before asking if he might try piloting one of the large remote-controlled robots used for mining operations. Strategy: the robot Cameron attempted to control acted in an unexpected fashion, turning towards the control booth and charging. The robot shattered the booth, resulting in the death of the First Lord and 9 others as their bodies were sucked into the vacuum of space. The First Lord's death was declared an accident and would fuel many conspiracy theories, but internal communications from within personal archives of Commanding General Alexander Kerensky, released by Lauren Tissing, Lore Master of Clan Ghost Bear, in the 3080s. So 3080s, probably not an era we'll ever get to reveal this information in. But, you know, that could be some post-credit stuff, so. In the conclusion of the campaign was, confirmed that forensic evidence of the sabotage had been turned up during the investigation of Cameron's death. The report was limited to the Star League Information Corps, I think is what it is. Star League Defense Force. Where is it? Where is it? Well, SLIC. So, the SLIC. I'm just going to put a question mark next to it because I didn't see an immediate connection to where that was. I'm pretty sure that's the Star League Information Corps. And the HCIB, which is an article that doesn't exist anymore. Oh, it just hasn't been created. And so we'll put down what that is. HCB. I'll just put a question mark next to that. Star League Information, because that's what we're guessing it is, or intelligence. Probably intelligence. It's probably intelligence corps. That the command circuits on the mining robot had been tampered with, and that a Trojan routine has been installed. The investigators believe that the nation state was involved, but due to the generic nature of the components used and the lack of further evidence, it was impossible to confirm whether the parties were behind the sabotage. So HCIB. So that's some nation state that had a stake in, you know, uprooting the current Star League Lord, which is a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Star's End was a mining system contested by the Rimworld Republic and the Lyran Commonwealth. Star's End would become famous in 2751. Okay. Maybe we're talking about the Rimworld's Republic here, which is Ameris. So, Rimworld's Republic, RWR. So I'm gonna put a question mark about that. RWR. Basically, what I kind of want to do is, towards the opening chapters of this, now that we know that February 17th is our big day for kind of what ignites a lot of interesting events to begin, we want to be just behind that day to start and have this information pop up after some of the first scenes we have in development with our players. So we could start anywhere within that year or maybe beforehand. So let's go ahead and go back to where our main page is now. We're in the 28th century, so let's go down to where 2750 is. Okay, Simon Cameron begins his tour of the Star League in 2750. So basically, we could start on the day of the beginning of the tour. So let's go to 2750. Simon Cameron begins the tour of Star League. Sirius Elm is born, and Kurita dies. The G4 Rampage Assault Class Battlemech enters service in the Rimworld's Republic. And then the CP-10 HQ variant of the Cyclops Battlemech is introduced. That's interesting. But that's a year to be interested in. And about what we should be doing. Star League Tour begins that day, so we don't really have a specific date, I guess. Let's check Simon Cameron's thing, just see if we do have a day by chance. I might have missed it while I was in there. I don't particularly see one. We know that he dies in February. He started the year of beforehand. So we could totally say that this could be in like January or February. So I would say if he's beginning the tour at the beginning of the year, let's just go with January. And we'll pick a random day in there. And that will be our start date for our players. Basically getting announced that, hey, Simon Cameron is going to go on tour around the Star League, and wherever they are located, which most likely will be towards the direction of the Rimworld Republic, and them investigating the information surrounding Ameris and the Rimworld Republic itself. At the time, Simon Cameron basically is unaware of what's going on, but understands that Ameris and his people from a previous time and a leak of information disappeared out that way. And that was discussed in the Ameris Civil War on Textox Battletech at one point too. So something interesting to keep in mind with that particular thing. And we'll revisit that at some point about Ameris and his people and what they're kind of all about, per se. I'm going to put this binder off to the side since I'm just using my pad here to write everything down. Simon Cameron begins his tour. January, whatever the day is, year 2750. Our players are somewhere probably out in the deep periphery. And they're looking for evidence of basically Rimworld's involvement in some sort of like debilitating action towards the Star League. Basically, you know, they're looking for dissidents. They're doing routine operations out there, you know, extended maneuvers, as Kerensky would say later on during the Exodus. Iced coffee. From there, we just need to figure out basically what that action is going to be during that time. Let's go back. We're looking at the 28th. We're looking at, well, yeah, the 28th century again. We're in here, 2751. Let's go to what the events are in here. 17th of February, he's killed. April 3rd, 8-year-old Richard Cameron is named the First Lord of Star League. So between February and April 3rd, we have no First Lord. And then Richard Cameron is assigned. So Richard Cameron then gets assigned as First Lord. He's not so much assigned, but you know, is appointed the First Lord and Regent of Alexander Kerensky. It's kind of a momentous era during then. Avenger assembles fields. Battlemech. Stefan Amaris has the Ignis Urban Assault Vehicle put into production. Let's look at what the Ignis is. Because Amaris now has that going for production. Rimworld's Anti-Insurgency Vehicle originated in an infantry carrier. Designed. 4 vehicle flamers and a machine gun turret. Battle value of 463. So it's just an anti-insurgency, like anti-infantry vehicle. It's basically, you know, march it through an urban area and just rip apart anybody who decides to walk too close to a vehicle line. Okay. And the Royal variant of the Griffin Battlemech is introduced. The Griffin is a great Battlemech. The Royal variant is kind of interesting. That's Word of Blake, 3N. Wolf Empire refit. No, those are Omnis. Let me see. Oh. Custom. All right. Let me look. 2N. All right, 2N. The SLDF Royal Griffin was introduced in 2751. A mounted ERPPC, 2 SRM-6 launchers, and a Guardian ECM suite. The heat sinks were then upgraded to double strength models, or double heat sinks. And the ammo was protected by case to fit all of this. The armor was changed to ferrofibrous, and the chassis was made of endosteel. This appeared during the Succession War until the Jihad era returned thanks to the discovery of New Dallas Memory Core. The clans also retained a number of original models among the Solomon forces. Battle value of around 1606. So something to keep in mind for our players in terms of its introduction of the Royal Griffin in 2751. would be something that, if they're lucky, they could, get a hold of. Or something special, necessarily. But, again, more stuff to just kind of add to the news broadcasting and other interesting facts surrounding the area. The Terran Hegemony ground vehicle-sized mobile HPG. Now, this thing is interesting. We're talking about a mobile HPG, or hyperpulse generator, an array based on numerous worlds across the Hemisphere. Comstar owns and operates these, collecting payments from those who wish to transmit messages. The FTL devices are primary means of interstellar communication, and Comstar has virtually a monopoly on their usage. They pretty much do, for the most part, and anybody who owns one outside of that is gonna feel the wrath of Comstar really quickly. Even great houses, for the most part, didn't control too much of the HPG network, aside from what they could buy Comstar off of. So there's a lot of stuff around that in terms of what they do. But yeah. Starleague and Comstar HPG network is based on a simple two-stage memory primary class A HPGs. I don't really care about that. Standard. Okay, mobile HPGs. This is the texture we're really interested in right here. You know what? I just noticed that this is too small for you guys. If that's any better. No, not really. Let's get a little closer. Is that a little better? No. Can I get a little closer? Oh boy, we're getting real close now. Okay, mobile HPGs. As well as the standard planetary station, the Terran Hegemony was also successful in miniaturizing the technology to develop the mobile hyperpulse generator. A common form of mobile HPG is the 50-ton model installed upon large spacecraft such as jump ships and warships introduced in 2655. So in 2655, a type of model version that makes basically jump ships and warships possible was introduced then. An even smaller 12-ton ground mobile model designed for transport by ground vehicles or battlemechs was in development in 2751. While relying heavily upon SLDF and civil services of the hegemony, the modern era, only the clans and both halves of the sundered Comstar have access to the mobile systems, jealously guarding the technology even after the schism. Which I believe is referring to the Dark Age and the Word of Blake versus traditional Comstar. But don't entirely quote me on that because I'm, again, not a historian. But I do my best. But it was introduced then, and the development of the 2751 mobile HPG introduces the ground vehicle-sized mobile HPG. In 2751, we also have the mobile HPG, which would only be anywhere within the Terran Hegemony itself, and would be jealously guarded up until we hit the Succession Wars anyways, because, again, communication technology is what controls a battlefield, for the most part. But then we also talk about Richard Cannon here and some other stuff. So let's go to 2752. Introduces amendments to reduce the limits of Council Edict of 2650. So in 2650, we have the Council reduction in those edicts. So in 2752, we'll basically begin to get reports of House militaries increasing. House militaries increasing is a bad thing for everybody, basically. Two reasons. Two major reasons. Number one, the houses have already been hosting, as you can see here, hidden wars behind, the SLDF's backs. They're trying to do what they want in the meantime and take territory from each other and continue their advances in political regime as well as military conquest. Number two, this also means that a rapidly expanding military infrastructure base that is bolstered by the technological infrastructure of the SLDF, House military now has access to, because they've been sitting back and watching and now can record and understand and now build these machines of war. The Federated Sun reactivates the 22nd Avalon Hussars. It's a unit formed during the Age of War. Parent is the Avalon Hussars. The 22nd Avalon Hussars, originally formed during the Age of War, was one of the Hussar regiments that was done during the Star League era, and the consequences of the Edict of 50 limited the size of military capacity of great houses and was allowed to field. The 22nd was reactivated in 2752, allowing the repeal of the Edict of the subsequent wide-scale rearmament of Great House began. The 22nd were soon actively embroiled in the border war on Compelled Border and were deployed in the invasion of Redfield in support of the 17th Avalon Hussar. The 22nd performed well during the invasion of the armed forces of the Federated Suns. High Command authorized the expansion of the 22nd through the addition of the 4th Battalion, which was equipped with salvaged or captured Capellan war material. While the expansion in size boosted the firepower of the 22nd considerably, it also had the side effect of lowering the overall combat performance of the 22nd, which had still not returned to its original level by 2765. Basically just saying that they could have more units, and so they reactivated a previous unit that performed super well, but overall, because of the combination of diminished forces, they put it all back together. And the Outwards Alliance launches a new flagship of their warship fleet, the Pinto Class Corvette OAS Hussar. Individual Pinto Class warship, OAS Hussar, was the first warship to be produced by the Outworlds Alliance. So we're just going to mark that down because that might be a region where they could be closer towards, potentially. Just to know that that ship exists. Not necessarily will they run into it, but it is a point of understanding that that ship was only possible because of the reductions of power from the repeal of the Council Edict of 2650 in 2752. Hussar was serving as a lead ship of the small Outworlds Alliance warship fleet in 2765. The fleet was commanded by Chairman Arthur Engelman. Commanding officer of the Pulsar consisted of 15 Pintos. We'll have to get into what type of class that was at some point. While no Pintos had been constructed between the launch of the Pulsar in April 2765, but was considered likely that she would be joined by other new warships at some point in the near future due to the constant activity going on in the number of Alliance shipyards. They just expected them to be building more. That's all it's really saying. Pulsar and her sister ships were the victims of the Periphery Uprising. None of the warships in the pre-Uprising Outworlds Alliance fleet survived the war with the Star League Defense Force. And that's important to understand because this basically is saying that at some point we gotta take these fuckers out. So the Pulsar will die. That's pretty much what it's saying. And that has to do with the fact that the Periphery Uprising, which is a part of the American Civil War, 2765 to 2766, during that year, we have to destroy the Pulsar. So that might be a quest. I say that in quotes, that they have to complete. The reason why I say that in quotes is not necessarily will they do that, and be successful in it, but that may be an objective that they take on or are a part of, and that ship will have to die at some point. Because part of the American Civil War and the Periphery Uprising, we have to make our way throughout the periphery and deal with the reference problems there. So, something to keep in mind. Actually, while I'm at it, let's look at the Pinto Class and what it is. The manufacturer, Roe Weapon Systems, or the Finmark, it's built on Alvarez, Diamond Grader Fleet Yards, and Canopus 4. Introduced in 2502. The production year is 2502, obviously. Same year as made is started being produced. The technology base is the Star League. Costs about $2 billion? 2.3 billion? I think I'm reading that correctly. So that's 341 million. So it's 2,341,388,000 C-bills. Expensive. But it's basically a $2.4 billion machine. Mass of about 1,600, I'm gonna guess, grams? Tons? I don't know. But it's a big ship. Length 298 meters. The sail diameter is 505 meters. Interesting. I'll have to find out what that means exactly for the sail diameter. If somebody wants to comment and let me know, I'd be more than happy to respond. And then fuel of about 5,000 tons. Burn rate of 19.75. The safe thrust is at 2.5 Gs. The top thrust is 4. Sail integrity of 3. KF integrity of 5. LF battery doesn't have one. It's got 4 Barracudas, 3 NL35Ss, 2 light NPPC-Ss, 2 NARC 10s, 5 large lasers, 10 medium lasers, 48 small lasers, 80 machine guns, 10 AC-5s, and 4 AC-20s. Standard armor capacity, drop ship capacity of 1, a crew of 193, and the grab decks of 1 by 45 meter diameter. Escape pods and lifeboats, it's a 10 for 10, 800 heat sinks, and a structural integrity of 29. The battle value is approximately 28,135. The battle value 2.0 is unknown, clearly because we don't really have an updated one for that, because nobody uses warships anymore because we destroyed our technology base so badly. But that is a particular warship that they might have to take on in the periphery with Alexander Kerensky's forces during the uprising. Potential, they could be out there doing that. Okay, so coming back to here, we're talking about the Third Hidden War that was going on. The Third Hidden War was also known as the Pirate War, or the Phony War. Part of the Star League, 2741 to 2752. It ended during then. The result was inconclusive. The conditions were normal. Alternately known as the Pirate War or the Phony War, the Third Hidden War was the last of the low-level hidden wars in the Star League era. After the formation of the Star League, its mammoth Star League Defense Force, or the SLDF, and the ever-present scourge of the piracy greatly declined in the wake of the reunification war. So technically we're not in the reunification war, because that ends in 2597, so this is a little more towards the periphery uprising. And again, the American Civil War, which is another junction of things going on. But this is technically a time of peace. But there are, quote-unquote, secret wars going on. Unfortunately, the weakness revealed by First Lord Jonathan Cameron's inaction during the so-called Second Hidden War led to a worrying upswing in bandit raids along the border worlds of the Inner Sphere, adding to the increasing tension and malaise of the era. So, then that kind of changes the story a little bit of where we start. Simon Cameron is doing his starting point, and we are out there somewhere in the periphery, probably ending the Third Hidden War, basically. The situation escalated in 2741 when a group of bandits raided the Lyran Commonwealth on the world of the Edge. Armed with battalions worth of brand new battlemechs, the bandits destroyed everything standing between their LZ and their respective, or their objective, a rare metals refinery and its stockpile in the center of the planet's capital. The location of the garrison were no match for the bandits' cutting-edge hardware, and more than 500 Lyran civilians died in the raid. Appalled, Archon Michael Steiner offered a huge reward for any information on the raiders' whereabouts. With aid from the Terran hegemony and information provided by an anonymous free trader, the Lyran Intelligence Corps, the LIC, successfully located the bandits' base on the Rimworld's Republic planet of Buet Hold. I think that's how you say it, Buet Hold. The following year, within the 12th Lyran regulars dispatched after them, eager to avenge those killed on the edge, the 12th caught the bandits unaware and easily captured or killed them in the desolate planet's desert plains. Interrogating a few surviving bandits almost to the point of torture, the LIC discovered the startling news that the bandits were in fact mercenaries employed and equipped by the Draconis Combine. So some more interweaving of political stylings, who styled themselves as pirates, avoiding implicating the Combine with orders to specifically target certain Lyran worlds. This affiliation with the Draconis Combine might have been a double-layered false flag, as Stefan Amaris had begun staging a number of false fronts along the Lyran and Draconis border in an effort to inflame the Hidden War. At the Winter Council session of 2742, Archon Steiner angeredly confronted Coordinator Takiro Kurita, at least I can say Kurita correctly, with irrefutable proof of the mercenaries' origin. Akira simply laughed at the Archon, initially claiming that the Steiner had falsified the evidence, but eventually stated that the Lyrans of all people knew that business was business. Enraged by his response, Michael Steiner leapt at the Coordinator, wrestling him to the floor and landing several blows before council guards could physically separate them. Both parties demanded the First Lord Simon Cameron intercede on behalf, but Cameron re-advocated, and furious, Steiner threatened war. Okay, I'm not sure if I said that word right, so you know what? We're gonna look up that word real quick.
Prevaricate.
Prevaricate. Past tense, prevaricate. Past tense, prevaricated. Speak and act in an evasive way. So he prevaricated, or acted evasively towards this interesting point, I guess. By January 27th, 34, five brigades of the Commonwealth troops amassed on the Combine border, forcing the Combine to respond in kind by putting both realms on a war footing, unlike the Father's reluctance to involve the Star League in the war of Davion's succession, Simon did not tolerate the House Lords posturing, and in March of that year sent in a large number of SLDF troops and warships to the region to be the show of mighty force, carrying both the Lyrans and the Kiritan forces down by mid-year. Despite backing down from full-on warfare, the tempo of the bandit raids continued to grow rapidly as the Council Lords began to use such disguised forces to settle their grudges and grievances. With the Council Lords all publicly denying knowledge and responsibility of these renegades, even when confronted with blatant evidence of their duplicity gathered by Star League Intelligence Corp. So, SLIC, so we now know what it is. It's the Star League Intelligence Corps. Which makes sense. It's not core, it's corpse. But, you know, we get it. The First Lord put aside diplomacy and ordered the SLDF to shoot on sight any unmarked or unresponsive soldier, vehicle, or ship, and sensed that Cameron's interference, soon disguised House warships began escorting the bandits and protecting them from SLDF assault. When challenged by First Lord on his new escalation, the House Lords either made hollow claims of bandits capturing their vessels or blaming internal opponents having gone rogue, with Council Lords refusing to put aside differences and barely acknowledging his authority. In response to the increasing threat of the continued unity of the Star League, First Lord Cameron decided to appeal directly to his people by launching his famed Grand Tour that ended abruptly with his death at Star's End. So, in the conclusion of this, while the bandits would continue to launch raids, the Third War largely concluded in 2752 as a result of the death of Simon Cameron, and the regency of General Kerensky gave the Council Lords far more free room to push their agendas in a more open fashion. The Council Lords amended the Cameron Act of 2650, doubling the allowed size of House militaries, and enabled them to integrate many of the bandit forces they disavowed into their formal armed military. So, okay, that tells me that basically what we're dealing with could start basically towards the conclusion point of the Third War, or the Third Phony War, or the Hidden War. Third Hidden War. See, this is why we do research. We learn how to do this correctly. The results of this will be inconclusive, so pretty much a great starting point that we could have for our players is they are a shipment of troops basically sent out there are a bunch of troops sent out trying to stop this event per se. The Star League responded in kind, confronted with so this situation starts in the raid of 2741, basically, where we're dealing with pirates during then that are discovered to be actually Combine soldiers pretending to be pirates. This may be orchestrated by Stefan Amaris. So that could be the particular mission if we have somebody from an intelligence who could be investigating the involvement. Another particular thing is obviously we're quelling, let me write that down correctly, quelling conflict Draconis Combine has styled them, blah, 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 blah. Stephen Amaris begins staging fronts. Basically, Stephen Amaris is trying to pit people against each other, and he's being sneaky about it by, you know, getting them to think that they're one or the others, or business is just business, you know. Kiryata's shitty way of saying that they don't care either way, whether it was them or not. The fight in the council room happens in 2742. So this could be an opening segment that we can go off of. Not necessarily do we have to start them per se in the midst of the major events going on here, but we could totally, you know, go off of this. In 2743, we have the issue of the border skirmish. Quote unquote. Where they begin sending stuff up there, and so in March of that year, March X day, so we'll pick a day in March basically to facilitate when that actually happens. When they arrive is somewhat irrelevant because they could arrive staggered, but in March is the important part. They sent in a large number of SLDF troops, warships in the region, to show force cowering both the Lyran and Kiryata forces to stand down mid-year. So, the tempo of full-on warfare, the tempo of the bandit raids continued to grow rapidly. So, let's say their assignment starts in 2743. And this particular unit is reinforcing the border skirmishes here. Their unit is doing that, and they're part of an investigative team going on maybe a particular thread from the SLIC. Basically saying that the House Lords then escorting the bandits, refusing it, so incensed by everything and going on, this is a late arriving unit that is part of an investigative team in 2750. Maybe some point, you know what, let's even go 2759 and let's put them in like November, so they've got like a month before he really shoots off, but you're arriving there within a month and they already get an interaction basically. Then in 2750 in January, they hear about the, you know, the announcement of the tour of the Star League. Then, for 2 years, they go on doing their particular thing until 2752. Well, I'm missing a part in there, but let me get to that in just a second. So in 2751, they hear about Simon's death. Orders don't change, but basically they get no response. From the Star League the SLIC in 2751. They get no response. In 2752, basically the border skirmish begins a full. And so this unit is basically caught in the middle of it. So that can be an interesting starting point of just stuff for them to do. Going over kind of the general thing going on here. September 9th, Conrad Tamoya is born in Strix. Who is Conrad Tamoya? Comstar, Primus of Comstar. Wait, what? Okay, maybe I should know about this. Assumed the control of Comstar following Jerome Blake's death in 2819. That has to do with something different. That has to do with Comstar and the Word of Blake stuff probably going on. Unless they dies. Joe? Oh, I don't know. Duchess of Summer. Spouse is Michael Steiner II, and their children are Robert, Jennifer, and Paul Steiners. Robert II. Is the Duchess of Summer, which means, you know, part of the important people. Joanne, I think that's Joanne. Joanne Lestrade was a member of the Lestrade line holding the position of Duchess of Summer, and also became the wife of Archon Michael Steiner II. So basically the scion of the Steiner family. April 16th, Tango Aerospace is formed in the Sarner Commonality. Is Tango Aerospace, it's just a company. Aerospace fighter, conventional fighters, dropships, and tolls. Cool. Vertical takeoff lifters, I think. CAD 1 HB Royal variant of the Shadowhawk is introduced, and the ARC 2RB Royal variant of the Archer is also introduced. So, major SLDF battlemechs, basically. Royal mostly consists with the configurations of that, so with the SLDF, I should say. Shadowhawk machinery. Okay, here we go. SLDF Royal upgrade of the Shadowhawk changes the role of the mag to a close-range brawler introduced in 2752. The weapon system's replaced with an LBX-10 autocannon, 2 Streak SRM-2s, medium lasers. The heatsinks are double heatsinks models, and the ammo is protected by a case. To save weight, it used an endo-steel chassis in ferrofibrous armor, upgrading it to a 1354 battle value. And then we have the 2RB, which is another Royal Edition. The 2RB, equipped with Star League technology, the 2RB variant of the Archer was built for SLDF units starting in 2752. Built on an endo-steel internal structure, this variant dropped one of the rear-fire medium lasers and 1 ton of ammunition to equip the LRM-20s with Artemis IV fire control system and case. The 2RB used double heat sinks to keep the mechs cool. The battle value is then upgraded to 1705. Great mech, so great upgrades to it, per se. But yeah, so that concludes kind of that year. And kind of the nice part about this is there's just a lot of stuff going on, so every moment that the players are in, something feels like it's happening. Something feels like it's changing, something feels like it's going on. So every month, every moment, every day counts to these players in terms of stuff they're doing. As you get later on in the timeline of the inner spheres, of the general consensus of kind of the way that Battletech works, things get dragged out longer and longer and longer. Part of the reason why I want to kind of look into writing a book for Battletech is just to kind of expand on the idea that Battletech doesn't need to be slow-moving, even on a galactic scale. And I feel like some of the reason why the writers did what they did, per se, I'll put it that way. Part of the reason I feel they did what they did is because they really wanted to slow down the pacing of how Battletech evolves, because technology has a bad habit in future settings of over-evolution, or I kind of have everything I already need and I don't know where to go next. So limiting or dark aging things or making it improportionate is kind of a good way to stop people from going too far. It's a thought process, it's an idea, but you know, it's something, you know, to think about. So, in the meantime, let's step into the next part of this. Next year, 2753, Stephen Amaris meets Richard Cameron in August of 2753. So that's not something our players will probably know, unless particularly they are for some reason at court. But we might have somebody who's a titled noble or something like that, or somebody who's connected to one of the houses in a deep fashion. So potentially they could be aware of, you know, him meeting Stephen Amaris. So Stephen Amaris meets Richard Cameron II. Let's look at this guy. Oh, that face. Oh, that face. He is a creepy dude. Stephen Ulchris Amaris. What a dude. Diary of a Madman. Yeah. Richard Cameron's quote-unquote friend. We'll go over a little bit more about Stephen Amaris eventually at some point, but basically we'll talk about the intricacies of what his involvement and basically what is his war will amount to. So March 19th, Halvarin Zoivik and Nigel Zoivik? I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. Let's see. Zoivik. I don't have a pronunciation for the name, unfortunately. But these two are born in 2753, together as twin brother and her, for the first Khan of Clan Burak. Twin brother fought against Alexander Kerensky during both the Apollo campaign and Operation Liberation and Dissolution of the British politics. Decided to join the Star League Defense Force following the war's end. Nigel Exodus in the Inner Sphere, during the migrational serves, spreading They were some of the first clan people, basically. During Operation Klondike, Nigel led the clan during the campaign of Ghana, and while Kerensky ultimately decided the clan's Wolf and Jade Falcon would carry out the final operation on that world, Clan Burdock and nevertheless lived up to his expectations. Only one of the clans initially assigned to Vega So clan people I don't really care about them. And you know, Why should I? They're clans. They're dirty clanners. And anybody out there who wants to fight me on it, go ahead. Dirty clanners. But that's because I consider myself also an inner spheres person. I'm definitely probably a Lyran. Sorry, not a mercenary. I'm probably with the Lyrans. At least when they were better. And they were much harder on their military. They were cool. But I chalked it up to Sid Alpha and making Lyrans look cool. So, credit to you, Sid. Credit to you indeed. His father was the ambassador of the Khan's Combine to the Star League, and had informed coordinator Hiro Kirita on recent events when Amir's coup started. He and his family were still on Terra. They were put under protective custody, stiffened Amir's and used as bargaining tool to keep the Draconis Combine out of the war at any level. Joseph Kirita. Only after Alexander Kerensky and the regular army had reclaimed Terra did the public understand why the coordinator had behaved so strangely. Despite Kirita's cooperation with Stefan Amaris, the regular army found Dargo Kirita and his family dead in their rooms, apparently murdered by Amaris in the chaos just before the fall of Terra in 2780. So he was dead anyways. But Joseph Kirita was born on 2753. And then the royal variant of the Thunderbolt and the Crusader were introduced, basically. Oh, well, okay, the Thunderbolt mech was, the royal variant of the Thunderbolt was introduced. Damn, that is a nice looking mech. Like, whew. It's basically a Thor, like, but better. Let's take a look. So-called Lost Thunderbolt. 5SB. We're looking for the 5SB. The SLD of Royal variant of the Thunderbolt was introduced in 2753 and uses Starleague technology and an endosteel chassis and provides more space for an updated weapon mix. The LRM launcher receives an Artemis 4 fire control system, while the SRM is replaced with Streak SRM-2 launchers. Missile ammunition is protected by case, and the larger laser is replaced by an ERPPC. A pair of small pulse lasers replace the machine guns, and the medium lasers remain in place. 14 double heat sinks keep the mech warrior comfortable at a battle value of 1618. Very cool mech. Something I want to get my hands on eventually in our later campaign with the clans, but you know, I probably will end up running into it maybe at a different point. Let's see, is there anyone from the 30s, maybe? Star League area, Federated Suns refit. Thunderbolt was introduced in 2910. Iridian Light Horse Mercenary unit as a raider and reconnaissance mech modified for mobility. The variant has Steiner 2930 3050. Okay, so a clan technology refit of the TDR S5. So the S5 is something that we could possibly get a hold of. The Thunderbolt was built, and the Thunderbolt C replaces the original weaponry. All structured components are unaltered. The clan standard weapon systems have replaced the clan large pulse laser in a single torso mounted ER large laser, an arm mounted ER medium laser, and 2 ER small lasers. So all the structural components are the same, they just kind of replace the weaponry. Star League, upgraded Star League technology. In 3049 by Earthworks Incorporated, the 7M is re-armored using ferrofibrous armor, reducing the weight. So this is one I could definitely get a hold of, because this is literally the year they just made it. It's got case, which is even better. Oh, I love case. I'd like not to die immediately from my ammo exploding. I don't mind if I hurt myself quite a bit, because I can, you know, save myself as quote-unquote my character. Because I'm a decent-ish doctor, but damn will I ever get fucked up. Based on the older 5SS model, 9S was built in 3050 by Overlord weapon. So this is a 3051. Off the shelf structural components, the mech is armed with a Defiance primary long-range firepower supported by closer SRM-6. So this is just basically saying that it's just an off-the-shelf model in 3050 that they fixed up. The Manus is another upgrade, 3067. I mean, it's a good-looking mech. That's like the biggest thing about it that I love is it's a good freaking looking mech. Features an exceptionally roomy cockpit compared to that of the Atlas or the Battlemaster. So, you know, it's a good one. The fact that the heaviest mech capable of being produced at the time, as the mech is known affectionately as the T-Bolt, may have been classified changed as larger mechs for build. Thanks to the periodic updates, it's still feared and respected by many. Buried arsenal, the Thunderbolt remains one of the best armed mechs, making it capable of serving in many roles. It's an incredibly well-armored mech, rivaling or exceeding the amount of armor carried by some assault mechs. One downside to the Thunderbolt, though, is poor heat management. The Thunderbolt also noted for featuring an exceptionally roomy cockpit compared to that of the Atlas and Battlemaster. Okay. It's a cool freaking mech. That's not great, but you know, that's easy to deal with at top speed. 65 tons, so it's a heavy mech. It'd definitely be fun to get a hold of and get a Thunderbolt in my hands at some point, but the introduction of the CDR3, or sorry, the 5SRB is interesting. Now the Crusader, another one, and that's the 3L was introduced. Let's see where the 3L. The variant of the Crusader takes the concept from both the 3D and the 3K models to save weight with a twist. Built for the Capellan Federation, of course it's the Capellans. Starting in 2753, the mech has removed the LRM-15 and the SRM-6 launchers and replaced them with 2 LRM-10 launchers and 2 SRM-4 launchers. This frees up room for 2 additional heatsinks, as well as the inclusion of 4 GM Jetstar jump jets. 2 each on either side of the torso, giving it a jump distance of 120 meters. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background, but my cat is screaming at the door right now. She wants attention, and I really want to give it to her. But I have to be nice and finish doing this. But I'm going to give her a little bit of attention. I'll be right back. I just had to make sure they were doing all right. All right. Kill my cats. What? Okay, she's adorable, and she's a big old kitty. She's a big kitty. But she's a good kitty. Yeah. The other one here is, his name is Seth. I'll have you meet him in just a second. It will tolerate it a little bit longer, but you don't have to control it. Okay, so let's look at this L3 variant of the Crusader, which takes the concept of both jump jets, giving it a jump distance of 120 meters. That's a big jump distance. It's got a damn good battle value too. But let's go ahead and look at what it has. So normally, yeah, again, the two LRM-15s, the SRM-6s, which are replaced, the two medium lasers, and two machine guns is what I have. Crusader is an interesting mech. I know that it's not a bad one by any means, but it's not one more commonly used by the SLDF per se, because it's just not a model they picked up, but a lot of house forces do have them, at least closer towards the periphery side, is the more expensive thing to buy that gives you a little bit more, but something you could play around with in a lot of ways. But yeah, some nice art of it right there. Very much looks like, reminds me a lot of the Xeon forces from Gundam, which are pretty cool. But yeah, so this is what happens in 2753. So potentially during this time, my players per se could be back at, like, it could potentially be going back to the inner spheres, like Terra, or somewhere that the council is, and having a council meeting of some kind, and could potentially be there for a day or two, witnessing what is going on with the council. They were called in for a special report or something like that while all the lords are meeting, bringing in information that they find necessarily from 2752. So they could spend, you know, some time going back and then discussing the findings with SLIC. That's a potential plot line to go off of. And even if not necessarily with FLIC, just the Starleague Defense Force itself. And they could be witness to the Stephen Amaris meeting Richard Cameron. Kind of being a witness to this provocative point in time. So, going on to 2754, the elements of the 376th Battlemech Division assault on Castle Bryan-style fortress on an uncharted world in the periphery. So the 376th Battlemech Division does an assault on Castle Bryan-style fortress on an uncharted world. After 6 weeks of battle, the fortress defenders denoted nuclear suicide charges which destroyed the fortress. No evidence of which who built or defended the fortress was found at the time. In 2764, the unit was assigned and blah 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 blah. All stuff we don't really care about, but basically they're on a unknown, the Gaiap division? Okay. What is, I'm trying to remember what number that is. The parent formation of which corps is it? Star League, the 47th. 47th corps. That's the parent unit, and then their parent unit is the 12th Army. Or the 20th Army. 20th Army. Oh, yeah, 20th Army. I totally misread that. And obviously the Defense Force. The 20th Army... Okay. But the 376th Battlemech Division fights a Castle Bryan style fortress. I kind of want to know what that is. Castle Bryan style fortress. First introduced by the Terran hegemony in 2391, each Castle Bryan, quote-unquote, was a massive defensive fortress. They were built on numerous worlds during the hegemony and Star League eras. Named after Director General Brian Cameron, Castle Bryan was originally constructed during the time of the Terran hegemony as a buffer between the Draconis Combine and the first castle built on Telos 4. Within 30 years of over 100 more were built on Telos 4. Within 30 years, all along the Terran hegemony's border and on important internal worlds. While a tremendously expensive endeavor, no one questioned the Director General's decision to build them. The events during the Age of War would prove this effort to be prudent. In the wake of the reunification war, with the formation of the Star League and the Star League Defense Force took control over the structures, and more were built in the periphery as a means of controlling the rebellious population. Unfortunately, when the First Lord Richard Cameron withdrew SLDF from the Rimworld's Republic in 2755, he gave control over the outpost castles to his good friend, Stephen Amaris. Troops occupied these fortifications and studied them so that with the onset of the Amaris Civil War, Republican forces had a thorough understanding of the structures and how to defeat them. I know, just saying Republican feels weird, just being an American, so it's just, but it makes sense because it is the Rimworld's Republic, so Republican forces. The total number of Castle Bryans constructed was never been found, in part thanks to the skill of the hegemony building them right under the noses of friends and allies. As many results under the lost after the end of the war Alexander Kerensky took, surviving SLDF with him on the Exodus. Soon, even the method of their construction became lost tech. Wow, really? A castle? That became lost tech? Damn, Intersphere, you really fucked things up. As did many other wondrous technologies like stasis chambers and weather control facilities. The other 20 castles located on Terra were eventually taken over and used extensively by Comstar, which were in turn taken over by the Warlord Blade. And that's Castle Bryan right there, which is basically a hillside defense kind of thing. It's a little weird, but yeah. The textbook definition of a Castle Bryan at a minimum of 20 heavily armed turrets carrying an assortment of direct fire and missile weaponry, 15 smaller turrets, and 100 smaller anti-personnel bunkers. They were usually the only visible structures of the fortress, which was usually built deep inside of a mountain and safe from all but the heaviest nuclear or orbital bombardment. An average of 10 levels allowed enough space for storage of 2 brigades, which could quickly emerge from any of the 5 secret exits. The reality was that no 2 Castle Bryans were alike, and there were several different classifications for the type of fortified structures. Almost all impressive as structures themselves were the lengths taken to build them in secret. Some of the most remote regions of the planet, including diverting an entire sea to build a castle on the seabed and flooring area once more. While often mistakenly believed to have been built to prevent an invasion or takeover of the planet, static fortresses were not meant to protect anything other than themselves and the forces contained within. With the limited resources of the Terran hegemony compared to the nations of the other great houses, the later Star League's sheer size preventing blanket defense coverage of most worlds. Castle Bryan was introduced to be a hindrance against blitzkrieg invasions, storing enough weapons, food, and men, allowing any defender to hold out and harass the invaders, hopefully until reinforcements arrive. In effect, their very presence acted as a deterrent against invasion. Or, while any enemy may succeed in capturing a planet, the presence of one or more castles could prevent them from effectively controlling its sufficient garrison forces. The correct plural form of Castle Bryan, the name stems from the first name of Brian Cameron. Exact number of Castle Bryans in the inner sphere and periphery was unknown, but in 2423, the League had already 120 of them. The planet with the largest number outside of Terra was Lambrick, with 6 of them. Earth had at least 20. On the planet in a radius of 30 light years around Earth, there are 83. See a list of known Castle Bryans, so we might look at that at some point. The precursor to the modern Castle Bryan, castles were built on important or rebellious worlds, often the sides of mountains or beneath meters of concrete. Castles were stockpiled with weapons, honeycombed with tunnels that allowed the garrison to set ambushes. Castle Bryan, the most famous and awesome example of castles, Castle Bryan, which was creating a chain of fortresses around the hegemony and making its hostile neighbors think twice before invading. Full-size Castle Bryan would hold up to 2 brigades and extended for hundreds of kilometers underground, essentially forming its own city. Outpost castles. After the reunification war, the SLDF built many outpost castles, essentially Castle Bryan on a smaller scale. Rebellious worlds in the periphery, the worlds of Republic. Occupation of the outpost castles often allowed for thorough understanding of these fortifications, which led to the deaths of many SLDF troopers while the American Civil War was going on. And then port castles, a complex variation of the traditional Castle Bryan, had a smaller spaceport built into a highly protected position, allowing forces within to more easily be relieved during battle. No matter how well defended the spaceports were, they still represented a serious vulnerability in fortress defenses. Consequently, few port castles were built. Mini castles. Mini castles were Castle Bryans on a much smaller scale, with fewer entrances and the capacity to hold only 1 regiment. Often a Castle Bryan would have a ring of mini castles built around it to serve as the first line of defense. Cool. So we know a little bit more about them. That tells us a lot about what we're going to be doing with them, basically, in the game. Castle Bryans are strategic objectives that can be great boons or great hindrances in dealing with the situation, which is cool. So that's something to keep in mind. This is another reason why those of you out there who are interested in doing lore for Battletech, please go through and things like the Castle Bryan, connect that back to the actual article of the Castle Bryan in the timeline, because it'll be super cool to see further constructions of the timeline just linking back to where they're supposed to in the articles and being able to reference them correctly. I think that's just important of understanding. What is this? Is it a table of organization? Let's do Battlemech Divisions. Oh, okay. That's just talking about the divisions. Okay. Don't need to worry about that right now. We'll get to that at some point. For the moment, I really need to pee, so I will be back. Okay. Welcome back. Hopefully, mic is working fine. Okay, cool. Coming back. We are in 2754. And we're discussing now, after we talked about the Castle Bryan fortress in the Battlemech Division that fought that, I think that'll be something that we can hear about, but I don't think I want to involve my players, particularly in just some uncharted periphery world that some random Castle Bryan style fortress blows itself up. I think that can hint towards a larger thing at some point. It's important at the moment. I'm pretty sure the audio here is a little bit more. Sorry if it's been too loud this entire time. Hopefully you're still able to hear me and it doesn't sound like crap, but yeah, let's go ahead and continue. 23rd Avalon Hussars, Federated Sons, they're basically just activating more forces. So we'll basically have a notice that the Fed comms are activating more forces. August 3rd, Stephen Cage Squad. Let's find out who Stephen Cage is. Clan Ice Horse. He's a Khan of Clan Ice Hellion. So he's just a dude, basically. Let's see. Is he important in any terms of born in the Lyran Commonwealth? So Stephen Emerson, committed in... Okay, so the records on civilian life of Stephen Cage are rather sparse. It is known that he was born in the Lyran Commonwealth, or Lyran Commonwealth, whatever you want to call it. He grew up watching the news nets, seeing daily reports about atrocities committed in the Terran hegemony by Stephen Amaris and his Republic forces. The campaign waged against the usurper by the General Alexander Kerensky would inspire him to enlist in the Starling Defense Force. So he was part of the Exodus, the original Exodus, and then the 200th Dragoons Regiment, Stephen Cage, rise to the rank of Major following the American Civil War. So he's a major. Would depart in the deep periphery. And was known as Spice Commander. After settling the Pentagon worlds, drawn down to would commend a regiment of years. Basically, he left in the Second Exodus and formed Clan Ice Hellion, and then came back and murdered a bunch of people. He was a soldier through and through. But not super important. We might run into him, so that's a name that we can kind of keep on the back burner of somebody in the Lyran space who joins up in the ranks during the Civil War period that we get to know more about. Again, it's mostly little bitey tidbits that we can just kind of like poke at in terms of lore to encourage people to look at. So, Those Combine Fields, Lutheran Armor Works manufactured Dragon Battlemech. So the Dragon is introduced. The Dragon introduction. You see that on the battlefield. Tramp class jump ship is first launched. So the Tramp, $770 million sea bills, sail diameter of 1,167 meters, length 670 meters, mass is 250,000 tons, so I'm guessing that mass is calculated by tons. Hopefully that also applied to that warship. 500 tons of fuel, or 1,250. Not sure what that's about. Burn rate of 39.52. Top thrust of 0.1 Gs. Sail integrity of 4. KF drive integrity of 5. LF battery only on variants. It was armed with 8 ER large lasers and 12 anti-missile systems. So it's a defense platform primarily in its operation. 31.5 tons of standard armor. Dropship capacity of 3. So you can attach 3 dropships to it. Takes only a crew of 21. Grav decks 1 by 140 meters diameter. Yeah, okay, so that's the deck size. 5 escape pods. 0 plus 122 heat sinks. I'm not sure what that means exactly. I'll have to figure that out. And structural integrity of 1.
All systems nominal.
Battle value of 1652. The Tramp class jump ship is primarily in size vastly more common Star-Lord class, but can only carry half the number of dropships. 3 compared to 6. Most shipyards chose to build the popular Star-Lord instead, since it's armed. The Tramp was a success among periphery traders when it first launched in 2754, but never built in large numbers, and eventually phased out, being produced only sporadically throughout the Succession War. Almost 3 centuries later, Celeste System Incorporated, who already produced the Star-Lord at Loyalty in the Free Worlds League, changed the old design specifications for the Tramp and found that the similarity in size between the two meant drastic savings in tooling up their shipyards to produce the Tramp as well. The first prototype Tramp was launched in 3046. Production was halted in 3052. And the fault in drive coils of the first 11 ships built was found, and the ships had to be recalled for refit. This damaged the design's reputation. Production is resumed in 3055, and by 3057, altogether 14 craft had been built. Designed as a traders in the wilder parts of the periphery, tramps are among the most heavily armed civilian jump ships, mounting 8 large lasers and altogether 12 anti-missile systems with ample ammunition. Still, should avoid combat since their armor is relatively thin. They also lack an integral fighter support. God, I can't believe I couldn't say that. And the vessel too small craft bays are unsuitable for a majority of fighter designs currently being produced. Standard Tramp has 2 small craft bays that can carry 2,834 tons of cargo. As of 2764, several SLDF runners had permanently attached tramps that were equipped with lithium fusion batteries. The wording suggests that the LFs were refit and not standard on Tramp class vessels of the era. It does not mention how many docking hardports these vessels had. According to Comstar document known as the Technical Readout of 3057, the clans, most notably Clan Novacat, were observed operating Tramp-class ships that make use of lithium fusion batteries and mount a 4th docking hardpoint, greatly reducing the internal cargo capacity. Since these ships are reportedly believed to be Starleague-era vessels, it could be speculated that the layout of the original version of the Tramp and the Soleil system later only produced a downgraded version. Later versions of the same book mark the corrected 3rd print, omit the half sentence where it says that particular clan variant carried 4 dropships, while not expressly repealing the earlier report either. The existence of such a Tramp variant with 4 hardpoints remains unconfirmed in the fashion of a canon rumor. The underlying reports may have been an error. So basically to say that it potentially has a 3rd or 4th hardpoint and it actually carries 4 dropships, but instead opted for batteries basis on the SLDF configuration. And so technically it could potentially carry 4 dropships. But that's the canon rumor. Canon rumor is name formation, stories, or facts which could be considered in-story rumor based on the context within the source material. Some Battletech's history are based on misdirection perpetrated in-story characters or organizations such as Comstar or the Ward of Blake. The term canon rumor can avail during the fan pros oversight of the Tech First franchise. The Interstellar Players was published. The book provided different alternate truths to the history and events of Battletech. Universe such as supplied players with alternate storylines to which to play. The Jihad Hotspot series of titles often considered to be composed of half-truths and rumor based on the communication breakdown associated with the corruption of the HPG network and during the conflict. So basically, it's in-game rumors designed to throw you off. But specifically, the Tramp is something that would be seen towards the outer periphery into later years, so it's important to keep that in mind as we explore the periphery as it was first launched. But this doesn't really come into play until towards the Clan Wars. The variant of the Withorn Battlemech is also introduced, the Withorn Zero, WTH Zero. Oh, look at that guy. That's a old picture for sure. 2610 is when it was first produced. Let's go ahead and look at variant. Okay, an incredibly rare version of the Withorn was made exclusively for the Amaris Dragoons in 2754 as a terror weapon. Only 24 of these variants were ever built by Withorn's Republic branch, carrying 2 Harpoon 6 SRM-6 racks in place of the LRM-10 launchers, along with 14 heat sinks and replacing the left arm laser with a flamer. These Withorns were painted matte black and became infamous for razing entire cities with their inferno-loaded SRMs and flamers. Basically to say that this particular model of the Withorn was destined for the American Dragoons and was probably destroyed horribly during the American Civil War. So that's something we could run into during the Civil War. But that has to do with a later portion of what we're going to be doing here. At some point when we're looking into a lot of the stuff having to do with Battletech, which is at some point or another we have to go through the list of Battlemechs of every category and find out which ones are usable in the setting that we are dictating. 2755. The Mechanized Infantry Division defeats a rogue brigade from the Primworld's Republic. Okay, so they fight that off. Jerome Blake graduates from the University of Lambrick. SLDF troops make their first contact with unknown jump ship, later revealed to be the Jarn Folk. Deep Periphery Proto-State. Control is 4 controlled systems. Military none. Secret Service unknown. Jarn Folk. Jarn Folk, literally the Iron People, or society of deep periphery denizens residing approximately 125 light years spinward of Columbus. Jarn Folk inhabited 4 worlds. Our Tron district located within the inner sphere. Holberg and Hoford and the Jarn Folk left the inner sphere as refugees and arrived in the deep periphery. As a result of the Honest Combine's harsh treatment of the Rosselhag worlds during the 2500s. Governed by the Federation-style council, as the Jarn Folk considered the Federation is rather weak. Power within the Jarn Folk society mainly resides within the 9 familial clans, which make up the Jarn Folk population. Kind of around that, okay. I don't like the actual clans, but not quite. Old Norse. Okay. Really good. Very stimulating. So they kind of represent Old Norse Terra. And so each family searches for ways to dominate the others. Every member of the society some kind of relationship with the family and is regarded with honor. Every attack against these lead often to duels with deadly endings. Duels and rituals and often regulations is punished with harsh brutality. So, you know, tribalist. Basically is what it's saying. And trade with other periphery powers such as Ancelanic League, agrarian lifestyle. All planets can support some small-scale, high-tech industry capable of producing excellent handmade pistols, Jarn Folk pistol, and other forms of handcrafts such as jewelry. Every Greek family owns a jump ship for trade, and the service of these fleets is held in society. Greatly non-particularly aggressive and tend to engage in hostilities only when demanded by blood feud between families. Things not related to pre-established blood feuds are viewed with extreme intolerance. Transgressions? Sorry, I didn't read that all out. Do not engage in large-scale combat. The Jarn Folk maintain no standing army, nor do they field any battle mechs or combat vehicles. However, Jarn Folk customarily wear ornate sidearms and exquisite manufacture. These sidearms are surrendered only in the most dire of circumstances. During the late 3060s, rumors began to appear suggesting kill teams of Jarn Folk had begun working as assassins. The veracity of these claims may be solid. History. July 16, 2504, the formation of the German Folk Society has its roots in the crews of the 9 jump ships. For 5 centuries, little is known about the internal affairs. Contact with the Explorer Corps of Comstar. Just kind of going into what they are a little bit. They're just deep periphery traders that make really, really good guns. First contact unknown jump ship, Jarn Falk. So some SLDF troops make some contact with an unknown jump ship. I think that would be an interesting point. If they're back out in the deep periphery and they are part of a contact team of troops that maybe makes contact with them. More Fed Suns are activated. Accidentally forms Guards Brigade? Accidentally? How do you accidentally make something? It's a regional Battlemech Brigade that was mustered by clerical accident defenders. They clerically made the thing that made the brigade. Okay. The world of Nutuina suffers from a large earthquake that requires SLDF. Nutuina. The Liv. What are the Liv? They're part of the 4th Army. What are they, though? No. The Lid Corps of Star League, which is... I don't know. I could only guess something having to do with, like, humanitarian aid. Some of their larger cause severe damage to the population centers there. Elements of the Liv Corps Star League were able to react quickly after the distressed population. So they help out with their issues. Star League Defense Force. Several planets become host to Star League Defense Force garrison after the birthday card proclamations. So that's an article that needs to be written. That sucks. Oh, Leopard Armor takes over. Oh, boy, the Burke. What a discussion there. Is the Burke technically produced? Man, 2580. So no. Is it? No, it's produced. But it's having some issues. The Alice Battlemech is finally fielded. Oh, the Atlas. You beautiful son of a bitch. 9.6 million C-bills. Atlas, best known Battlemech to ever step foot on the modern battlefield. Designed with the specifications from Alexander Kerensky himself. 2755, in the midst of Cameron edicts, the Atlas was originally intended to ensure SLDF superiority over the Star League member states. Though an inexorable arming of the Great Atlases continued, the Atlas itself proved to be everything General Kerensky requested, with the largest amount of armor in nearly any mech, crippling firepower, in a foreboding skull-shaped Death's Head cockpit head assembly. The Atlas lived up to its reputation. The mere sight of an Atlas would be known to make even veteran mech warriors break out in a cold sweat. Theoretically, a single Atlas can take on and wipe out an entire battalion of Stingers in exchange for minor armor loss. Atlas' first combat trials came during the American Civil War, where it served as an instrumental role, powerful command vehicle. General Alexander Kerensky is well known for being one who kicked down the house doors of the usurper in his Orion. It was his close friend, Aaron de Chevalier, who, in his Atlas, weathered the storm of enemy fire and breached the protective wall surrounding the complex. After this conflict, it was therefore little surprise to General wished for all those mechs to accompany him to Operation Exodus. But ironically, those mech warriors who refused his summons fully 2/3 were Atlas drivers. These units were spread among the successor states, Atlas factories, and Alnair, Epis II, and Quinton, with continued production of the mech through the Succession War. Aztec the Atlas. The model was released in 3049, just in time for the Clan invasion. Also began with blah 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 blah. It's just a great freaking mech. But Atlas. That is a big thing. We'll just consider it an announcement. At that point, because stuff would be getting shipped out to them. Because again, we're talking about the SLDF, so they're not actually really buying any of their mechs or anything. And production teams and requisition teams, it's a different story. In 57, the 12th Fleet is activated by Star League. The breakout of Edison White Flu is recorded on Lucer, so in 27, this is 2756. 56. Blue, just another report thing, and then the 12th Fleet. What is the 12th Fleet? It's Naval Command, newest fleet destroying, so it's just a new fleet. It's just a note that they exist. October 13th, Colleen Schmidt is born. Who's Colleen Schmidt? Clan Blood Spirits. Rank. Huh? I knew who the Schmidts are. Because it's Blackwatch. Granddaughter of Colleen Hannah Schmidt, last commander of the Royal Blackwatch. Yeah. Launched by Star League Defense Force. So we've got the Lee class dropship that gets introduced. 9 Gauss rifles, 11 ERPPCs. Goddamn, that thing is heavily freaking armored. Produced a few decades before the Maris coup. Class dropship was one of the last major military transports to be produced by the SLDF prior to the conquest by Stefan Amaris, pitched by the 3 major naval yards. Here in hegemony, the Lee proposal was put in SLDF commanding general Alexander Kerensky in 2749, and design was part of his vision to streamline a number of dropship military classes. His effort was focused on the creation of heavily armed and armored vessel that could carry a large payload of SLDF troops into battle quicker. Any current version of the Overlord current design currently in service, twice the size of SLDF standard Overlord. The Lee's primary design configuration was carry a reinforced battalion or the Battlemechs, supported by a single squadron of aerospace fighters. Quincy's efforts to get a Lee in production was not easy due to various boondoggles and political entanglements associated with the creation and development of previous vessels, such as the Colossus class dropship. However, the unpopular Star-Lord Richard Cameron efforts to preventing the design from entering production proved to be beneficial in having it approved by Star League Council. The Lee entered production in 2756. Lee saw its first major action during the Periphery Uprising, where its ability to move large number of troops proved to be a good boon. Okay, cool. So, Lee. So, that's another piece of equipment to keep in mind as we move into the Periphery Uprising at the beginning of 65. We're getting there. Getting there. We've got a couple more years to go through. In the Kingmar Surprise class, Cruiser is launched by the Starlight Defense Force. Kingmar Surprise's only a single ship of this variant was constructed. The SLS Surprise, which launched in 2756, the design varied from the standard Kingmar in several ways. Firstly, 4 heavy NPPCs and 4 medium NPPCs mounted on the nose of the ship and been replaced with a single light mass driver. Supplied with 30 rounds of ammunition and 4 heavy NPPCs in which broadsides have been removed, the number of fighters carried on the ship has been increased from 12 to 36. The amount of cargo space will almost double, with the ships capable of carrying 17,493 tons of cargo. The design also featured slightly increased structural and sail integrity and was 43 meters longer. The SLS Surprise conducted tests of the light mass driver and demonstrated a number of flaws with the design, including damage being inflicted on the Surprise when the weaponry was fired. Further tests were postponed while the Surprise underwent a refit, at the start of the American Civil War prevented any further development in manufacture of further ships of this class. Class battle cruiser and operational rival class upgrading the Kingdom class. Possess the warship. Hold the protection between just 2 ships in the class. Damn, that's a nice freaking ship though. I want one of those. So they launched it and learned that basically the light mass driver fucked up the ship. Blew in the sever. Okay, so we're in 2757 now. Oh Jesus! Almost knocked over my coffee. Good Lord, we're on another page. Already have notes. But you know, that's what happens when you write a campaign. Oh, delicious coffee. Need more. Iced coffee. Vanilla latte from Starbucks, because I am a basic bitch. Oh yeah. Coffee. Wonderful boyfriend woke up and farted. Love it. It's great. This big old toot. So, if I stop breathing, you know why. Anyways, moving on. Hegemony launches Operation Persuasive Force. Pretty sure that means Operation We're Gonna Shoot You Now. Anna Rose is born. That's Clan Novacat. And Zabu Kirita. I think that's how you say that, Zabu Kirita. But, you know, it's another Kiritan. Oh, the Blackjack! Oh, don't we love that? Blackjack gets introduced, and the best part about the Blackjack is there is an entire freaking Tex Talks Battletech on the Blackjack. So, at some point we will explore about its implementation into the campaign and what it's going to mean, and the further understanding of what the Blackjack really is, and talking about how we're going to just use it more appropriately. But Blackjack introduction in 2757. Cool. But we'll just look at the Blackjack because it's right there. Cool thing. Definitely doesn't look the same anymore in comparison with the new designs made by what is it, Piranha Games, and when they made the Battletech game, so it looks very different now. But yep, 2 autocannon 2s and 4 medium lasers. This design was fucking changed around a lot at some point. There are definitely some, you know, early prototype differed from the production model. GM Flashpoint Flamers, yeah, that's just talking about, you know, the original typing for the blackjack, which was supposed to be easy money, in making it an anti-personnel, you know, thing. But then they redesigned it after prototype issues and a bad name that it had gotten. The DBD Federated Sun variant introduced in 3022. That's just going into more of what the blackjack does and how it works. Blackjack is another variant inspired by 4. You see Blackjack 2, that's in 52 during the clans. Dark Age 3 was in 42. St. Ives Experimental Blackjack 3X during the Fourth Succession War. Featured double heat sinks in a revolutionarily rediscovered technology. It is implied that the heat sinks were actually stolen from the Federated Suns and Lyran Commonwealth, but in any case, the BJ3 was the first regular variant employed. Again, part of the standard loadout. Yeah, and it just goes into more and more of how to upgrade this fucker into being a better thing. But besides the point, the Tandem Charge Warhead prototype is produced in the Terran Hegemony. First produced in the Terran Hegemony in 2757, the Tandem Charge, or TC missile, didn't enter service until the Clan invasion of the Federated Commonwealth. Designed to replace standard SRMs with special warheads to penetrate armor and inflict damage to internal structure of the target, the Tandem Charge missile was a pair of explosives to inflict damage. The first explosive charge was to penetrate the outer armor. The second charge was to propel its way inward, deal internal damage. Their cost at 5 times more expensive than a standard SRM. They're not fucking cheap. They're very inefficient against conventional infantry. Of course they are. Ineffective, sorry. Ineffective. In addition to the tandem charge missiles are larger and heavier than their standard counterparts, so a mech can only carry half as many per ton. If a TC missile detonates in a mech's magazine, it will inflict 50% more damage than a standard SRM. So you're just dead anyways, because, you know, you were normally dead if you got hit in the ammo. But I'm pretty sure that would also mean that, like, Case couldn't even save you. They function as standard SRMs when used against aerospace fighters and are incompatible with Artemis, NARC, and Streak systems. Basically because they have their own system implementation, they won't work with other targeting systems, such as Artemis, NARC, or Streak. Fun! That's a shitty warhead, but, you know? That only is because of cost relations and the fact that if I can dump out 5 times as many SRMs into somebody else, then why not? I mean, getting penetrating rounds is pretty cool, but probably only effective in small-scale warfare in a different scenario. But anyways, we're moving on to 2758. 2758 conflicts. Unknown Rimworld's Republic force attacked the world of Mercedes. Oh, okay. So Rimworlds just does stupid shit. Does shit. The 6 Lyran guards attack the world of Stanley in response to the raid on Mercedes. Oh, so it's a Lyran world. So the Lyrans and the Rimworld, they fight. It's basically what it's saying. The Federated Suns activate the 28th Avalon Hussars. Cool. They put more troops out there. The southern continent of Viseria is quarantined due to the outbreak of the Edison White Flu. So that planet's just fucked. General Aaron D. Chevalier becomes commanding officer of the 1st Corps. So D. Chevalier. Gets a promotion. Again, more world building, more stuff going on. Gotta freaking love Sarna. And the fact that it gives you all the world building you need. The battles... Okay, so we're also moving on to the next year because nothing else happened. So 2759. Titanium Blade Bandit Unit captures Starleague Defense Force firebase on Shearwood, making off with large quantities of supplies and a dropship transporting new land-air mix. Ooh. So the SLDF have a fuck-up, basically. And they get fucked up by a bunch of bandits. That's not good. General Redgar Hamilton takes command of the SLDF's 28th Corps? I think that's what that is. 28th. Let me see if I'm right. Please tell me I got the 28th Corps. I did get that right. It's got an ox. Pretty cool. Part of the 13th Army. The 3rd Liao Guards are formed. Okay, so more people are putting more shit out. The 250th Battlemech Division moves to New Roland. Okay. And the Harwell River Dam crisis occurs on New Daedalus. What does that mean? What is that crisis? Age of War, Starleague. The dam on Harlow River burst, flooding the nearby city of Harlow. Hundreds of thousands of individuals were left homeless and in need of assistance. SAF troops under the command of William Orfelt arrived and quickly helped organize relief effort to those in need. For his efforts, Orlo was awarded the Gemini Medal. The historical and political significance of New Daedalus made the perfect location for a number of trade summits between Starleague member states. Delegates from the Starleague, Free Worlds League, the Capellan Federation were commonly on the world to attend those conferences during the SLDF providing security. During one of these summits, a plot was uncovered to sabotage the talks. Quick actions by the elements of the 131st Battlemech Division eliminated the threat, but those funding the potential terrorist plot were never uncovered. In 2762, elements of the 2nd Brigade of the Fossos Orin were trading with the 1st World Commanders. Pirates, yeah, not much else that I can get into just yet, but that has to do with talks there. But New Daedalus. What is with New Roland? Because the 250th gets moved to New Roland. So what in reference does that mean? 259, so they're there until 264. Planet history, in 2703, the first Zero aerospace fighters were tested on New Roland, built in response to attacks on the cities of Virgin Minor and Hickston. Okay, so they're part of the Capellan Federation, and this is where they made the Zeros. Cool. Good to know. Well, tested them at least, I guess, because they might have been built somewhere else. Here, let's look and see. Zero? Zero. Okay. 2703, Zero model. It's a light aerospace fighter. Tech base of the Star League. Aerospace fighter for the SLDF. It was designed as a heavier firepower variant. Ranges faster armed. Wings are mounted in front of the pilot. The engine cooling system is a means of providing protection against the fire under assault. Wings of the Zero can also fold back, saving hangar space. The Zero's pretty cool. Update their stock. Fighters using them during the Battle of Tugi. The clans maintain these units. Cool. So the Zero fighter was pretty cool. The capital city of Laconis is heavily damaged due to a hurricane. Okay, so the SLDF probably shows up and helps. Let's just make sure. Just calling this Reign of the Star League. Location here. Systems. Okay. Cals heavily damaged during a hurricane. The 35th Infantry Division of the SLDF earned a lot of goodwill by assisting the reconstruction efforts. In 2764, Laconis was considered a boom planet with a strong economic growth rates and hundreds of new colonists arriving daily. The resident SLDF garrisons stationed themselves at the planet's largest blue water port. This port was central of oil refinery and fleets of aquaculture ships for a growing planet. So the 35th Infantry Division is located here. Cool. Alright, so that does Laconis. So characters: Rebecca Fitland's tenure, commanding officer of the SLDF Engineering Subcommand ends. So became the CEO of the Engineering Subcommand. Jocasta. He was a close friend of Jocasta Cameron, the First Lord Jonathan Cameron, based on his sister Jocasta's advice. Second Human War. Became the de facto ruler of the Star League, and it was Jocasta. Copies Jonathan's letters predicting the destruction of the League. Pathetic warnings greatly disturbed the general, causing her to push for the construction of new fortifications, training new troops, along with the completion of the space defense system. Oh, she's responsible for that. So the space defense system, for those who don't know, or the SDS, is basically an automated system of elements that protect Terra. With the M2 drones and M3 drones. They're just absolutely fucking terrifying automated defense system that annihilates people. Thanks to her paranoia, we have that. Oh boy. Oh fucking boy is right. So in 59, so the engineering sub-commander, she ends her tenure. He's done. He retires. The Monarch class dropship is introduced. Okay. Still used during the Succession War, so we'll see this pop up later on. Dropship. Its introduction is widely interesting based on what it is. And we'll probably get into a little more detail of this one later, because this will become more apparent as it's one that can be more modified, I guess, for civilian use. But the Monarch's passenger quarters are split across two decks between the command and cargo sections. Each deck features 133 staterooms. The lower deck features shops and a sauna with a 150-seat dining area. The upper deck features 100 seating areas. It's a nice fucking dropship. This is a way to travel in fucking style. But while a great number of civilian passenger liners existed during the Star League era, the Monarch class dropship is the most common example used during the Maelstrom of the Succession Wars. Basically, it's a non-military dropship. Has zero armament whatsoever. And very little armor. 8 tons of standard armor. The iconic PPC-wielding R9 variant of the Panther is introduced following the disastrous showing of the original 8Z variant of the Battle of St. John earlier that year. Yeah, it's a Panther. We know what the Panther is. But it's the legendary Panther, the one with the goddamn PPC arm. R introduction. Who was it made by? Wakizashi Enterprises and Alison Weapons. Well, let's see who made it. It was an earlier version of Panther built in limited numbers and was first used by the SLDF. It was mounted in an ancient Roland large laser, known for its heat and maintenance issues. Another heat sink and one more ton of armor, along with more advanced communications equipment and a later fire control computer than the later R9. Conjecture suggests that the 8Z models were upgraded to the same successful configuration as the later R9 model, but retained their different onboard electronics. The Panther... Let's see if we can find the fucking R9. It's supposed to be the R9. I don't like that. The 9A lag combine measurements. Well, I guess what they're referring to up here is the main R9, which is one PVC, one SRM4, a Cat's Eye 5, Cybercom SUC4, and a Hermes 140 engine. Yeah, the Panther R9. Great freaking mech for light scout lance, for sure. I think the 8Z would have been really cool, though. But, technically speaking, the 8Z would have been used by the forces of the SLDF and then later upgraded. So, in that consideration, as the 8Z variant comes out within the given year, they'd probably go ahead and retrofit it to be like a ZR, whatever you would call it. It doesn't transfer forces. That brings us to 2760. In 2760, pirate forces attack Starleague defense forces in the world of Gibraltar. Let's take a look at what this happened. In Gibraltar, in 2760, the possibility supported by the Lyran Commonwealth, so Lyran bullshit. But yeah, go Lyrans. Attacked by the garrison of SLDF troopers on Gibraltar. Several damage to the barracks. I can't speak. Severe damage to the barracks and the Battlemech facilities reduced operations for the 15th Battlemech Division while reconstruction at Fort Alpes progressed. And this was at Fort Alpes. So these pirates fucked up the place, basically is what it's saying. Didn't kill him, but fucked it up pretty bad. The nuclear weapon detonated on Demeter sparks a border war between the Capellan Confederation and the Federated Suns. Nuclear bullshit. I'm going to blame that on the Capellans because you should never trust Capellans. They always start shit. And the Fed Suns. They're not the Federated Commonwealth yet. I know I called them earlier FedCom. That's a different story, but we'll get into that eventually because I believe that does come up in the later parts of what we're going to discuss as post-credit notes. Major characters born. Raymond Sanias? I think that's how you say it. Whoa, that's a face. Raymond Sneeze, born March 19th, 2760, the first Khan of Clan Fireman drill. Well, don't care, he's a clanner. Michael Steiner II. He dies. Robert Steiner is named the Archon of the Lyran Commonwealth. Robert Steiner. Oh boy. And Janita Centrella becomes Magistrix of the Magistry of Canopus. Where Slough dies and two Kurita is born. Or Kuritas. So, you know, stuff to keep in mind for people born and so on and so forth. Just news that can be part of the telecom, like, broadcast kind of thing. Hegemony produces the Extended Range Particle Projector Cannon. So ERPPCs are developed. ERPPC? Talon Weapons Industry fields the Hornet. Oh boy. This little dude. Oh god, that's a picture. An urban recon mech. The lack of interest forced the design to be shelved for 2 years. In 2990, Talon Industries rediscovered the blueprints and resumed production. The upgraded Hornet 171 started production in 3051. The production line was destroyed by the Compellers in 3069. The mech is designed around the concept of being able to swiftly move through urban environment with relatively heavy armor. Overall, because of its electric mix of weapons and relatively slow speed, the Hornet is also somewhat effective when inside of a city. When caught outside of an urban environment, the mech is hard-pressed to defend itself. Much like the urban mech. But the Hornet is fielded for the first time. The Royal 1GB variant of the Battlemaster. Oh boy. Royal Battlemaster. Let's take a look. The 1GB is an upgraded Battlemaster that used Terran Hegemony's based SLDF Royal units. Introduced in 2060, it was built on an Indo-Steel chassis, used double heatsinks, and retained the forward-facing medium lasers, to which was added a pair of ERPPCs, one in each arm, and a large pulse laser in the center torso, upgrading its battle value to 1825. That's pretty damn cool for a Royal variant. Gotta love a good ERPPC. Thank you, Terran Hegemony, for that. So let's write down the Royal Battlemaster. And then we have the 2R variant of the Marauder. God, that's a sexy mech. That is a sexy mech. One of my favorite of the chicken walkers. I like to consider it part of the crab series of mechs because it kind of looks like a crab, but it's a smaller crab. But I love a good crab. But the 2R, the upgrade of the 1R eventually replaced in 2760. The PPCs were upgraded to ERPPCs, necessitating a similar upgrade of the heatsinks to double heatsinks, making it a battle value of 1630, going from 1420 too. So that's a huge upgrade. Yeah. But it still keeps a lot of the other stuff of the Royal Division parts, which the earliest monitor used by the Royals Brigade, the SLDF. The 1R utilized case for protection of the autocan ammunition carried by the 11 tons of ferrofibrous armor. It was introduced in 2612. So it was introduced quite a while ago. But it carries an autocannon 5, 2 medium lasers, and 2 PPCs. Normally, that would be upgraded to ERPPCs and a case-protected autocannon 5. Just a nice big old fucking gun. Who doesn't love a big fucking gun? Oh, and a Royal Phoenix was also introduced. So we have the 2R Marauder. That's ERPPCs. Because, you know, once ERPPCs are introduced, you can't stop. And then the 1B variant for the Phoenix. Let's go ahead and check that out. It's a Phoenix Hawk, so it's a jumpy mech. So I imagine this includes some version of ERPPCs, because why not? So referred to as the Phoenix Hawk Special, or the 1B, was introduced in 2760 for Star League's Royal units. It utilized an XL engine as well as endo steel for its chassis, which allowed the designers to upgrade its weaponry. The pistol-like laser that was upgraded to an ERPPC, of course, and the swivel-mounted ER large laser found its way onto the right torso, replacing 10 standard heatsinks with double heatsinks, and kept the high-heat weapons from overheating the mech. A Guardian EMC suite in the center torso also improved the B-1's defense, while moving the machine gun ammunition into the left torso, adding case, virtually ensured that the mech warrior would survive an ammunition explosion. So basically, case, ERPPC, and ER large. Another great variant to be introduced into the later portions of this. Definitely something to consider that a players could get a hold of. The upgraded version of the Colossus Crest dropship was introduced. This fucker's big. Yeah, 2 Aero 4s. By the way, if you don't know what an Aero 4 is, the concept of it is, if I can hit within your zip code, I've hit you. It's just big artillery weapon. Okay, so description. After being embarrassed by the lack of coordination and cooperation among their units taking part in the war games held by the periphery in 2651, the SLDF High Commander responded by creating their famous Regimental Combat Teams, or RCT, seeking a dropship that could carry support in new information operations. Michael responded with the Colossus class, a bold design missing 20,000 tons, massing 20,000 tons, and the largest assault dropship ever built. The Colossus was designed from the start to fulfill the need of an RCT. Enhance the unit's qualities. It was equipped with the most advanced armor, weapons, technology for the era, driving the vessel at cost up to $700 million Star League dollars per ship. Despite the high cost, the Colossus was designed to be easily repaired, and its components were remarkably robust, adding to its reliability. While the performance of their intended function admirably, the cost of replacing them was too prohibitive. After both the manufacturer and the majority of the ships were destroyed during the Kerensky Civil War, excuse me, the Colossus were replaced by the smaller yet capable Excalibur. At half the cost after the war, only 5 Colossus ships were known to have survived. Those disappeared with Kerensky's army. A few examples have since been discovered. One crashed example was found in the Lyran Commonwealth world of Vedeka? Snord's Irregulars 3024, which they salvaged unknown, but presumably substantial amounts of Star League era equipment. The ship later cannibalized by the Lyran Commonwealth forces. Another crash-landed vessel was recovered in a hidden Star League depot on Epsilon Iridion by Lone Star Regiment in 3067 and restored to flight status. During the Jihad, a Federated Sons repaired shipyard in orbit of the Grove, named Clyde Shipyards, began building the ancient design once more. The AFFS. I don't know what that is. But basically, later on, they made it work. That's pretty much what they're saying. Just reading a quick message. So one of the other things that I've been doing lately, and I decided to get into, is there was a website. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see here. Okay, start playing games. Start playing games. Start playing games is like a get paid to be a DM kind of thing. So I put myself out there as a DM. If anybody interested in playing Battletech, I'd be more than happy to run it. They have free games as well as, you know, non-free games, I guess. You know, paid for games. But yeah, so go to adventures here. You can create one, schedule, blah, blah, blah. You can browse games here. Not the most well set up website in the world, but I get what they're trying to do, and I can appreciate that. So in this case, if we look at Battletech the RPG, there's nobody. So go ahead and request a game and see if you can make my game happen. So far the only thing I did is charge $1 for it. They haven't approved it just yet. I don't know if they've looked at it either. But I'll do my best to provide an excellent game for you guys. As you can clearly see, I do my research. And this is just one of the eras that you could play in. But this specifically has to do with my Monday night game that I will be doing. So you could totally play through this era as well if you are interested in doing so. So, you know, go check it out. Maybe see if you can find a 5e game and other things like that. They're running an ad campaign right now to get their non-D&D games more projected out there. So I guess I will talk to them sometime today about doing that, I guess. Well, at least I'll try. I love Battletech. I want to try out a little more of 40k, and get Call of Cthulhu at some point and play around in that system. And then there are a couple other systems I've been looking at recently that were brought up to me by one of my good friends, Mike, or as you see him in the games, Orinaka. So the concept there is, the two other games that we were planning on doing is Overarms, kind of building on the idea of like a JoJo-based adventure style game, using the system of Overarms. And then we also have Era Survival, which will be exploring the post-apocalyptic, more modern scenarios of, you know, modern survival in a post-apocalyptic scenario. They seem like really cool systems I'd love to try out and do. So that'll be something I'll be playing around with in the coming weeks and months. So yeah, look out for something like that at some point. But moving on, 2760 is now done. Let's go on and move to 2761. House Liao's Sun Crusaders invades the temporarily occupies the Federated Sun's world of Li. House Liao launches an attack on the Federated Sun's world of Meter. Liao's just fucking people up. Ariana Grenadiers repulse the Fed Sun's attack of Hallroom 4. For 5, the 108th Jump Infantry Division defeats the pirate force on Albert Falls. The 103 Mechanized Infantry Division seizes weapons manufactured on Tianjin. 38th Jump Infantry Division rescues the president of the Planetary Assembly on Luxon. And the pirate forces raids the planet of Joshua. The SLDF responds less than a day later. Oh boy. So a bunch of fighting goes on. So, not to too generalize it, but that'll be probably something I have to come back to. But basically just stating a lot of fighting. Well, let's get a little bit more into that. Sun's Crusaders Curseirs, I think that's how you say that. I'm probably wrong. Regiment is rebuilt and reformed. So they're just a unit under one of the House Military's Compellins. Compellin forces are rebuilt, and the quarantine of the southern continent is lifted. The Edison white flu epidemic ends. So this planet is free of epidemic. Free of epidemic as the white flu ends. So the poor Evelsier gets brutalized by this thing. Histories of the Iron Commonwealth during the Starliger ends the Reunification War. Starleague birthday proclamations, host of the garrison, Starleague defense where this blah blah blah. The outbreak broke in 2760. The quarantine was lifted in 61. So they have a bad flu. Carl Jorgensen is born. Oh, he's actually a fairly important figure, as Clan Widowmaker later on will be. But he is born then. So another name to keep in mind. In terms of something interesting. The 7A variant of the Warhammer is first used by the SLDF Royal Regiments. So the 7A... Oh, an edit was saved. I don't know what I edited. But hopefully I didn't fuck anything up. I don't know enough to edit anything, so don't blame me. So 7A. So let's get really far down here. Okay, so the 7A variant was an upgrade of the 6RB variant used by the SOD Royal Regiments. The first fielded in 2761. The variant used endo steel, internal structure, 16 double heat sinks. PPCs were upgraded to ER PPCs. The Artemis 4 fire control system was added to the SRM launcher. The machine guns and small lasers of standard versions were replaced with a pair of small pulse lasers, while the medium lasers in the side torsos were supplemented by 2 more medium lasers in the center torso. So that's a fairly nice variant. Yeah, that's not a bad variant by any means. So the 7A Warhammer. It's the first fielding of it. They probably existed before then, but this will be the first time that they actually get used, basically. The Blue Shot Weapons links. Battlemech enters production. So the Blue Shot enters production. 2761. ERPPC, medium lasers, and 1 large laser. The Lynx is first produced in 2761 by Blue Shot Weapons of the Solaris 7 for use by the SLDF. One of the first battlemechs to mount an ERPPC, the Lynx possesses a stunning combination of speed, mobility, and armor, and firepower for any mech of its weight class. However, Blue Shot Weapons, the designer of the Lynx, was never able to produce this striker battlemech in significant numbers. With the decline of technology of the Succession Wars, Blue Shot productions dwindled still until the factory producing the Lynx was destroyed in 2728 or 2928 by Merrick Raiders. The few remaining Lynxes were ultimately cannibalized for what could be salvaged. The Lynx did not see production again until 3056. Sad to see, because that is a great mech. That really is a basis for, I think, one of the other clan mechs that comes out in terms of the lighter categories that gets upgraded further. But the Lynx is an interesting one. Starts production. So that's interesting to see, because I think the Puma is kind of the basis of where the Lynx, Clan Novacat's Puma, is kind of the basis for where the Lynx is the parent of. Alright, that brings us to 2762. 2762. What happens in 2762? The Federated Sons recaptures Redfield. An unannounced training exercise with the 4th Regulan Hussars on Cameron leads to a skirmish with SLDF 210 Jump Infantry Division. The 345th Dragoon Regiment crushes the suspected bandit enclave in the system not far from the Apollo system. Good coffee. The 298th Battle Regiment skirmishes with an unknown force on an unnamed periphery world. Basically, they have a fight with somebody. Okay. So, SLDF embarrasses the 4th Regular Hussarans, I'm guessing. I mean, when you start shooting at somebody, they tend to shoot back. Richard Cameron comes of age and becomes the first Lord of the Star League. So, this is an interesting year. In 62, Richard Cameron takes over. So you notice through the last couple years here, basically we've just kind of been drifting through it. So we have to come up with events for our particular parties to deal with in terms of their conflicts. And that'll be a little more up to DM discretion at that point, because depending on where they are can affect what they're going to be doing. But once we hit 62, now Richard Cameron's in power. And that changes a lot of things for a lot of different reasons. Number one, Richard Cameron is an idiot, and if you look at the American Civil War by Tex Talks Battletech, you'll realize why. The Executive Order 156 is passed and repealed after the House Lords declare it illegal, because basically his first action is to make something stupid happen and piss off everybody. Duchess Elisa Cameron Jones founds the 4th Regulan Hussars. So she founds those forces and fights with the SLDF. That's great. That's not a smart move. A bomb detonates in senior staff meeting of the 166th Mechanized Infantry Division of Akara. Not good. And the 7th Royal Infantry Division stops an assassination attempt against Grand Duke Alisan Ornida. Grand Duke Alisan. Let's look up the name really quick. Who's Grand Duke Allison? Martin Allison, Carter. Well, it's in Sarna, so it's Martin Allison. Full position of Grand Duke. So it's the Free Worlds League. Okay, so we're dealing with the Free Worlds League there. Stop the assassination of Grand Duke Allison on Anita. So cool, they did something good. That also brings Hans Jorgensen is born, and then Sandra Singh is born. Cool. Stops the production of the Hornet. Oh, so sad. Overlord class dropship is introduced to the inner sphere. So the Overlord. Now this is an interesting piece of machinery here. The Overlord is the primary mech transport dropships in the inner sphere, capable of carrying a full mech battalion and a squadron of aerospace fighters, as well as the most technical support for both. The nearly 10,000-ton vessel has proven its worth as a dedicated combat transport. usually kept out of combat to minimize the risk of loss of its expensive vessels. When grounded, they often serve as dedicated command stations and resupply bases in longer campaigns. These highly valued ships started to become scarce in the later succession wars, but rediscovered technology and retrofits have continued to keep them in service. Yeah, so the Overlord is basically the Inner Sphere's go-to dropship. After warships were basically put on the back burner, dropship technology needed to improve, and this is how they did it. So the Overlord introduction. And they didn't fall in love with this thing right away, but it pretty much sufficed what they needed. And then the Stingray aerospace fighter was then introduced. Very traditional looking in terms of its construction. But a fairly cheap fighter, actually, at 2.9. The Sting, instantly recognizable, the forward-swept wing design of the Stingray, nicknamed the Slapback, is a prized fighter in the Inner Sphere, an experimental fighter just before the fall of the Star League, with a wing design based on the 21st century Terran conventional fighter, the Stingray. It's proposed by the common... Its production by the common among House Merrick forces. God, I could not say that for the life of me. Although every successor state, in particular House Steiner, has a few of the nimble fighters in its inventory. Noted for maneuverability and stability, the Stingray is not fast, but deadly with its heavy armament. So, going into what is in a Stingray. 2 medium lasers, 2 large lasers, and a PPC. That rivals just about any medium mech, for the most part. F90 model, production year 27, and it's considered a medium class fighter. Which by Inner Sphere standards is not the worst thing in the world. It's 60 tons, so it's still heavy. It's a big dude, but it's still good. Anyways, the Stingray is introduced. Yeah, so with their introduction, that is the end of 62. I mean, a lot goes on in 62, because in terms of relevance to what happens to Star League, because Richard Cameron takes over, big things start to happen. A large bandit force attacks the world of Polis. The 2nd Regimental Combat Team is all but destroyed by Praetorian rebels on Detroit. So, 2763, the SLDF, what is it, the 2nd Regimental Combat Team, the 2nd RCT, Regimental Combat Team, is wiped by Taurian rebels. Because, the Taurians have notoriously been, notorious. Richard Cameron has the taxation edict of 2763 passed despite the objections of the 4 periphery lords. Basically, Richard Cameron is a piss-off little shit lord, and fuck him, he destroyed the Inner Sphere and the Star League. Because he was a dumbass, and he listened to a dude who looks like he was out of a Chinese to-go box and was the warned precursor of everything bad. I mean, good God, look at his face. Just look up his face. I don't want to look at it anymore. The FWLS Albert Merrick is destroyed in an incident involving the SLDF 7th Fleet. Basically, they blow up his fucking ship because he's stupid, and Merrick should know better not to fuck with the SLDF. and Kerensky, for that matter. Soldiers of the 67th Battlemech Division are court-martialed for stealing ammunition on Ameris 4. Okay. So, the 67th gets a court-martial. The FWLS gets its shit kicked. It's shit kicked by SLDF. And then the GBC Battlemaster was then introduced, which is again an upgrade of the GB, of the Royal variant. The C variation, and we saw a little bit of it before. I know I didn't scroll all the way down to it, but GBC, a variant of the GB 2763, the model dropped 3 heatsinks to incorporate a command console. Basically making it more of a command mech. The command console and the Battlemech component have a complete second set of controls for a second mech warrior pilot at command and control facilities. It should not be confused with the smaller dual cockpit, which can be installed in a mech and splits mech operations between 2 people, a pilot and a gunner, and therefore requires both to operate the mech. Enhanced Command Controls facility turns a mech carrying a command console into moving command center, typically used by high-level commanders. Star League vintage command consoles are very rare by 3025 because mechs equipped in this way were favored targets in battle. Most still existed from regulated to training duties. The command console system can only be added to heavy or assault mechs. It is too large to fit into smaller mechs. So yeah, keeping in mind that obviously Star League usage is limited, but a Battlemaster GBC is not a bad idea per se. So the Battlemaster GC, how 1GC is, the upgrade version, Royal style, less radical upgrade than the G and the GC. The heatsinks to double, and the models remove the machine guns to make room for the command console. Operational standard wise, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that goes into probably the last Battlemech design for the Battlemaster we'll probably see. ACOM Widgets discontinues the J-27 Ordnance Transport manufacturing on Zolkanov. So the J-27 Ordnance Transporter, it's just got a machine gun on it and your nice ice variants. Slab hardware, logistics. I just want to know what the fucking... Okay, there's the speed. 86 kilometers per hour. So a fairly fast, Defense Force, truck. Typically reloads LRM launchers. It's just a reloader. Glorified reloader. We're almost done. So yeah, we'll be ending about 15 minutes early here at 2:45. ACOM Widgets, that's just the company. Okay. Otherwise, not particularly. Okay, so in February, this is important because it's literally stating in February of 2063. So in Feb 2063, in February, Bandit Force. Now, let's look at Parapolis. Collaborative effort to improve flight capacity. Okay, so they're doing some overhauls on this, which is kind of nice. That's super cool. Parapolis. Let's take a look here. And Brute Force Regiment decides to attack the world. The fighting the bit killed the prize force color guard. 272nd Battlemech Division. The commanding officer of those 222nd believed that the bandits purposely set fire to the horses' breeding grounds and stables as they were the only recognized Foundation line to be found off Terra and Via. Vivana? I'm not sure about that one, but in an effort to save the horses, the bandit forces were able to escape through the 272nd is still aggressively hunting for the perpetrators. And this is obviously Star League. But they killed their horses! They killed the prize La Panzer Force Color Guard. Oh boy. They're animals. Truly. Truly animals. 2764, the 6 Avalon Hussars defeat the large raid on Hussar conducted by the pirates of the Torian Corded equipment. Tensions of New Olympia led the retaliation attacks between American Militia and the SLDF 66th Infantry Division. The 35th Royal Can Marine Regiment engages and destroys pirate dropship over the ocean of Duledan. Terran rebels, Torian rebels attack the 33rd Infantry Division on Grossbach. Wow. Major periphery fighting, basically. Okay, so in 2764, a lot of fighting. I'm just gonna put a lot of fighting for now. Again, something to come back to at some point. Because obviously Richard Cameron has pissed off a majority of people and he's not doing anything about this fighting because he hasn't organized the military whatsoever to do something. But that has more to do with what Maris is doing than anything. The SLDF launches an operation on Rondiri that captures the leadership of the Torian Freedom Army. So they fuck up the Torians too. In terms of their rebellious actions, the Fedsons founds the 56th Avalon Hussars, more reinforcement from the Fedsons, and the 47th Royal Mechanized Infantry Division completes anti-separatist operations on an outpost of New Bergen and St. John. So, you know, the Torians get their leadership taken. Torian leadership captured. Torians don't really give a shit about their leaders, though. They just don't care for the inner spheres. The Fedsons reinforce again. In the 47th, basically does their thing. So Ralph Carden is born. Ralph Carden Clan Cloud Cobra, so somebody who won't live to see much longer, and then Nicholas Kerensky is born. Fuck this guy. Yeah, but he's the reason for the clans. And Nicholas is born in secret. The reason we know it's in secret is because Kerensky never talked about his family whatsoever. The founder of the clans in the first Guild Khan, he was the eldest son, designated the heir of the legendary Kerensky, commanding general of the SLDF. Also known and idolized as the Great Father of the clans, Nicholas Kerensky was revered, almost saintly figure in clan history, much which was forged, falsified, or wrapped up by Nicholas Kerensky himself. In actual truth, he was a psychopath with a troubled childhood that apparently left him emotionally scarred with severe psychological issues. He may have also had a genetic disposition, since his mother, too, had suffered from psychological issues. They grew up in a war-torn society filled with manipulation and problems. Using deceit, propaganda as a means of manipulation, and positively embracing a harsh dictator rule, he would stop at nothing to create what he felt was the perfect utopian society. The clans. Turns out it wasn't. And it was a total fucking farce. And it sucked dick. So yeah, fuck you, clans. And Stefan Amaris class battleships begin to enter service in the remote republic. Important to note, that's Richard Cameron's fault. So the SA class. Battleships, or the BS ships, begin. Oh boy. 2765. Oh. 265th Assault Regiment of the SLDF is destroyed a position in a terrorist nuclear attack. So that's 2765. $265th HAR gone. That's the way I'll put that. They're gone. They're wiped out in a nuclear attack. That'll come up, obviously. The New Vandenberg Uprising begins on the Taurian Concordat. Okay, let's look at the New Vandenberg Uprising. So the New Vandenberg Uprising 2765 ends in 2766, so it'll end the next year. The SLDF ends the war after the conquest of Terra by Stefan Amaris. The New Vandenberg Uprising was a rebellion that took place from 2765 to 2766, beginning with the succession of New Vandenberg and several other worlds from the Star League. It would involve a majority of the periphery and heavy, brutal fighting against the SLDF. The fighting would end in a ceasefire with the onset of the American Civil War, through which it has been part of an elaborate plot by Stefan Amaris to facilitate his coup. Basically, the Taurians never wanted to be a part of the SLDF to begin with, and remained committed to that point, I guess, throughout this entirely, and Stefan Amaris fueled that. So, Taurians, they keep fighting. With that, with those battles, Cledron meets with First Lord Richard Cameron II and refuses Star League forces to enter the Taurian Concordat. Basically, I guess she's the representative of the Taurians. House Cledron. Taurian Concordat became the protectorate of the Taurian Concordat in 2726 after the assassination of Hampton Cledron. Nicoletta was only 18 years old at the time when she became the protector, and her grandfather retired and her uncle was killed. She would go on to lead the Concordat through the death of the Star League and was one of the major architects of its demise. Nicoletta spent most of her long tenure as the Protectorate defending the nation from increasingly severe burdens that the Star League was piling onto the periphery states. She also cultivated closer ties to those same states long before the Inner Sphere powers noticed her actions. The rest of her foreign policy was simply focusing on improving affairs within the Concordat to clear the way for seize any opportunities that Star League and the Great Houses might give her to benefit her people. In the fashion, Nicoletta was able to better prepare the Tentorian Concordat for a breakdown of the interstellar cooperation. No other nation or state was so well prepared as the Concordat when the Ameris crisis arose. Nicoletta was one who initiated the efforts to bring the periphery nations together in a unified political bloc to counter further Star League trepidations. It's also often allied with Janina Salenda of the Magistry of Canopus, and so they could not slow Richard Cameron's taxation edict in 763 after receiving trepid at best response from the High Council for relief from unfair taxation and trade barriers. She knew that her nation would have to one day fight for freedom. Nicoletta eventually built up the TDF, the Taurian Defense Force, as well as planetary militias. With most of the 20 known weapon manufacturers outside of the Inner Sphere located in the Concordat, she was able to siphon off production to her own forces and secretly. Slowly and secretly. Janita was hiring every mercenary she could get, and if these efforts that gave Stephen Ameris the cover he needed to launch his coup. Though much of the new Vandenberg uprising seems to have been solely Nicoletta's work, Ameris had convinced her that there was a much greater opposition to Richard Cameron's rule among great houses, especially after Cameron's Executive Order 156 in 2762. New Vandenberg uprising's focus was on the SLDF and General Kerensky, with the whole humanity watching as 18 worlds seceded from the Taurian Concordat in 2765. Nicoletta did nothing. By allowing the uprising to stand as an internal matter, it could be decided by the Concordat. Nicoletta tied up any political or military action by implying that Richard would send the SLDF into any great house internal matter whenever he chose to intervene. Nicoletta met personally with Richard Cameron for the second and last time in 2765. Her disdain for the man that kept both sister bound an insidious relationship made for a colorful exchange that infuriated the First Lord and amused the jaded High Council. The Civil War ravaged the Inner Sphere in the North's Republic. With over 100 million dead, the Taurian Concordat and the Magistrate of Canopus and the Outworld's alliance suffered very little. Nicoletta kept a strict neutrality to both Ameris and Kerensky, giving no aid or support to her old ally in his battle with the Great General. Wow! She's a fucking crazy person, and she's really good. Great work established in the Comstar in 2781. Ravages of civil war and the callous jockeying for power among the High Council clearly showed that there had to be a neutral body to run the HPG network without bias. Led by Nicoletta and aided by General Kerensky, the High Council appointed Jerome Blake to organize and operate the newly created Comstar. This would be the last time the full High Council would meet. Nicoletta and Jana returned to their realms 2 days after the vote, and shortly after that, with very little fanfare, declared independence from the Star League. On August 12, 2781, much later, the Great Lords voted to dissolve the Star League the same year. So she's kind of the construct in which Comstar came about as a force of change in the High Council, which is interesting. But she's also the reason why Stephen Ameris was able to get away with starting his coup, because she didn't care about the Star League to begin with and has always wanted to be a part of everything. Just be the Tentorian Concordat. But because Richard is a big fat baby and doesn't get that not everybody wants to play nice, and he gets upset over little things because he got implicated with an affair with her sister. Oh, wow. Yeah, no, it's just stupidity. Civilian population of Stenchnikaz becomes embroiled in a class war, distributing the planetary economy. So, class war? I'll have to investigate that one a little bit more, because that'll be interesting. As a political note to give, as you know, it's a classist society in a lot of places, so it'll be interesting to come look at and describe and intelligently project what is going on there. The 100th Hussar Regiment defects to the Magistracy of Canopus. Oh, wow. So, they defect to Canopus. Oh god, that's a Star League unit too. Hussar Regiment. The unit was assigned to the XX Corps 13th Army. We don't... So it's the 20th Corps of the 13th Army, District 3 of the Lyran Commonwealth Military Region, but was moved undisclosed area of the Periphery. The 100th joined the rebels during the Periphery Uprising of 2765, defecting to join the Magistracy of Canopus, but Hussars were destroyed at some point in 2766. So these guys are gonna get fucked up. Basically, they turned over all their weapons and such. The 36th Infantry Division defects to the Tatorian Warhead. Cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, Star League defectors. Because Richard's dumb. So because of Richard, Michael Loris is born. Clan Mongus, so he ends up in the Second Exodus, and then President of Davis' father, Beatrice of Valor, House Avalar. Feathers was born on the President of the Outworlds Alliance. So she dies on April 18th. Okay. So stuff to keep in mind. Star League's Atlas II Battlemech is in the early stages of development on New Earth. Ooh, the Atlas II is scary. That's a great mech. Skullbill Networks Jackrabbit Battlemech approved for combat testing. So the Jackrabbit, made by Skullbill Networks, which also made the first mech, the Maggie, AC2 and a Streak SRM2. So this is a light mech, kind of designed for long-range engagement and then rapid close-up. Developed in response to Star League's request for long-range infantry support. So it's an infantry support. The first Jackrabbit prototype was completed in 2763. Jackrabbit was only approved for combat testing a mere 2 weeks before the Maris coup. Damn. Stefan Amaris took advantage of his windfall and ordered the Jackrabbit mass production for his troops. Due to the fundamental flaws in the design being revealed in hard fighting in the American Civil War, the taint being used against the SLDF, no Jackrabbits were taken on Operation Exodus. The surviving examples of 500 Jackrabbits produced, Skullbill factory were carefully mothballed by Comstar. Oh, okay. So, yeah, approved for combat testing, so they started testing it, and then Amaris basically ordered a fuck ton of them, because he was like, cool, I could totally use these against the SLDF. The Atlas II, just a scary fucking mech, designed with the best of the best, an LBX-10 autocannon, LRM-20, SRM-6, medium pulse laser, and extended an ER large laser. It's fucking terrifying. The Commonwealth class light cruiser. Okay. Commonwealth class light cruiser. 7,000 tons, sail diameter of 1,003 meters, length of 694 meters, 5,000 tons of fuel, burn rate of 39.252. It's got a safe thrust of 1.5 Gs and a top thrust of 2.5. Sail integrity of 5. KF integrity of 15. God, that's close to warship. And no LF batteries. Good lord. It has got a lot of freaking armament. It's got 2 blocks worth of armament. It's got white shark launchers and killer whale launchers too. Barracuda, 18 Barracuda launchers. Wow. 700 tons of improved ferro aluminum armor. Damn, that is a big fucking ship. Alright, well, that brings us to 245. So, thank you for joining me, and I'll catch you next time as we pick up on the rest of the year 2765, and continue to go into what is our campaign for Monday, exploring the American Civil War and its pretenses. So, thank you for joining me, and have a great day.